Hello and welcome back to my channel. Make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. Let's begin. Byakuya nodded at the hell's butterfly that had entered his room and looked up just as the door opened. Renji Aburai, his lieutenant, walked in with glasses on top of his head and his dark red hair pulled back in a spiky ponytail. Did it just give you the same instructions I had? If you mean to retrieve Rukia from the world of the living, then yes. Byakuya remembered when he finally found Rukia at the academy. He thought he had seen a ghost when he saw her walk by, looking almost like his Anna. The resemblance was too much for him not to know it was her. He immediately told his grandfather he had found Rukia and that he was going to bring her into the house as a Kachiki like he had promised his Anna. Jinrei wasn't too thrilled about it, but he allowed her adoption into the Kachiki home. Byakuya then vowed that he would never break the rules again. He had lost his Anna for his efforts to bend the rules, and now that he had fulfilled his promise to her, which consisted of breaking the rules again, he was done. No more. So when the hell's butterfly told him that he and Renji were to go and retrieve Rukia back from the world of the living due to her breaking a crucial rule, he was slightly hesitant but knew he had to do what he had to do. He got up and grabbed Senbon Sakura, sticking it on his side, and grabbed his Haori off of the coat rack near the door along with his white scarf and put it around his neck. They walked to the Senkamen and headed to their destination, Karakura town. Two kept out of sight for the most part, watching things unfold from above the town when they spotted Rukia. Renji wanted to get her but Byakuya grabbed his shoulder. No. But Captain Dash. We are not here to just capture her. What do you mean? I received further instruction to make sure the human does not continue with the powers she has so foolishly given him. In order to find the human, we must let him reveal himself. Renji nodded. I see. They watched Rukia as she ran toward the forest. As she got into the forest, she seemed not to be able to detect them and Renji frowned. Sir, this is despicable. She can't even sense that we're here. Why is that, and why would she be in a jigai? Byakuya frowned and squinted, looking at her. He wasn't really paying attention to her form, but now that Renji had mentioned it, why was she in a jigai? Why would someone of her stature in the house reduce herself and conform herself in a jigai? There was something more to her giving some of her powers to the human than what met the eye. Lieutenant Renji. He looked at his captain and lifted his glasses that were over his eyes. Go down and figure out why she is like that. Renja grinned. My pleasure, Captain. Byakuya watched as Renji called out and then jumped down to talk to his sister. He watched for a moment when Renji asked about her being in a jigai and if it was appropriate. Byakuya used flash step to appear behind her and she turned, eyes wide. Nisama. Byakuya just looked at her with slight disgust for her appearance. Renji suddenly attacked her and he watched as she barely missed getting her own head chopped off by the sword. Disgrace, he thought, watching as he watched her regain herself but with blood on her cheek. Renji pointed his sword at her and told her their reason for coming and demanded the whereabouts of the human. She stubbornly refuses to tell him where he is, and Renji warns her that his slashes were meant to threaten, not kill, but the next one was. He went at her again, slashing and getting her in the arm when a blue glowing arrow whizzed past Renji's face. Byakuya looked over at the young man with glasses as he spoke with Renji. He didn't look worth his time, but something he said got Renji angry and he began to fight the human, whoever he was. Byakuya made sure to watch his sister but watched as Renji fought with the pathetic human with the strange powers. If he remembered his studies correctly, he thought the power was similar to Quincy's, but that was not his mission. Besides, the human was losing horribly against his lieutenant when a strong force seemed to appear out of nowhere and crack the concrete. Renji looked over as well as Byakuya and saw a teenager with spiky orange hair. Byakuya lifted an eyebrow, a strange flashback coming in his head of someone with that appearance teaching him swordplay. He closed his eyes, dismissing the stupid memory. Who the hell are you? Renji growled, turning to him. Kurosaki Ichigo. Byakuya's eyes widened, the name seeming to pierce straight through him. He didn't know why, but that name just made him feel alive, something he hadn't felt in a long time. He would never show it though. This mission was to retrieve Rukia, not play with the fake Shinigami. He heard Renji comment on Ichigo's sword size and then he realized that he was the one who had taken Rukia's powers. Stupid idiot, to take so long to figure that out. Even without a description, Byakuya had figured it out the moment the team came into view. The two fought for a moment when he somehow decided to take matters into his own hands, trying to kill Ichigo. Byakuya mentally sighed, knowing how emotional his lieutenant could be when it came to Rukia, but he wasn't going to stop him from killing the man who took his sister's powers. He'd just say it was an accident. Renji began to chastise the human for his efforts in trying to fight, and Byakuya remembered the report that was sent to tell him about the human. There were reports indicating a human named Kurosaki Ichigo had defeated a Minos Grande, making it retreat back to Hueco Mundo. Renji laughed. Are you serious? How could a fake Shinigami such as him be powerful enough to do that? He laughed and started fighting again. He was about to deal a death blow when Rukia jumped onto him and yelled for Ichigo to run. The team did nothing and Byakuya watched him, sensing something was about to happen. There was a sudden intensity of spiritual pressure as Ichigo got up off the ground. He looked at Renji and began to fight him again. Every time Ichigo struck Renji's sword, a bolt of emotion went through Byakuya. He didn't understand where he knew the pressure coming off of the orange-haired kid, but he felt it sting him over and over again. It was causing him to lose focus. He breathed in deeply when he looked up and saw Ichigo jump into the air, his direction headed straight for Renji, who would be definitely cut in half. Upon seeing him leap into the air, his control over his emotions cracked and for some reason, he felt an intense hatred for Ichigo. He used Shunpa and cut through the sword that Ichigo was using, going back to his spot before Ichigo hit the ground. Ichigo looked this sword and blinked in confusion over the missing blade. He looked over at Byakuya, who threw the blade aside. How did you do that? I didn't even see you. Byakuya's anger flared, but he kept his face expressionless as he reached up to grab Senbonzakura. Ichigo held up the blameless sword and a flashback of something long ago entered Byakuya's mind. He pushed the memory aside as he shunped to Ichigo, quickly stabbing him in the stomach and then stabbing him through the back with Senbonzakura. Stabbing Ichigo seemed to satisfy and yet trouble him at the same time. Renji frowned at Ichigo's body on the ground. I could have done that, Captain. Things seem to be going south for you. If I do not hone my skills, I will lose my abilities. I can't stand by all the time. Rukia tried to run to Ichigo but Renji grabbed her, explaining that even touching his body would lengthen her sentence by 20 years. Byakuya looked at Ichigo's body for a second before turning away when he felt Ichigo grab the bottom of his Haori. Let go. Byakuya said. Don't act as if I don't exist. Look at me when you talk to me. If you don't let go, I will cut off your arm. Who do you think you dash? He felt Ichigo's hand leave and slid his eyes to the side, seeing that Rukia had kicked his hand off for him. Rukia? Do not ever touch my brother's garments without permission. You are a human, a commoner. Even someone in the Rukon district is smart enough to know not to talk to my brother so casually. Don't you dare try and come after me, don't even think about it. If you do, I will never forgive you. Ichigo watched as she turned willingly with her brother and the red-haired guy as she looked up at her brother. Don't even bother finishing him off, Nisama. He's not worth the blood on Senbonzakura. Byakuya nodded when he felt he needed to explain his actions. Why, he didn't know, but he looked over his shoulder at Ichigo. I severed the two vital places, the chain link and the soul sleep. Your powers are gone, Kurosaki Ichigo. God, how good it felt to say his name for some reason. It was like home. You will die in an hour, but even if you do live, you won't have powers anymore. Byakuya learned that Rukia's execution would be done in 1 month. He figured he should let her know that her existence was about to be terminated soon and headed toward the cell that she was being kept in. Though he didn't honestly care, a person who cannot abide by the rules deserves this, there was a strange pressure beating at the back of his brain. He rubbed the back of his neck and shook his head, trying to keep the feeling from overcoming him. Did he really feel bad about her punishment? He walked into the place where Rukia was being held and went up to the bars. She looked at him for a second and he stared at her. You will be executed 1 month from now. You will not see me until the day of your execution. That's all. Renji frowned. Hey! What the hell was that? Byakuya looked back at him with a small glare that was almost undetectable and retreated from the room. As he walked away he met up with Jin and Kenpachi. Jin, with his perpetual grin, looked at him and nudged him with his elbow. Did you tell her? He asked. I did. Jin giggled, putting his sleeve-covered hand over his mouth. You're pretty cruel, Byakuya-san. Don't call me that. He said nonchalantly. Oh come on, we're friends. When did this idiotic notion come into your mind? He asked. Jin giggled again. Always. You do not matter. Why are you here without your lieutenants? Does it matter? Jin said with a shrug. How about I just kill her for you? That would solve all the problems. Byakuya glared at the spiky-haired berserker and tried not to take out his Zanpakuto and slice him to bits. He didn't know why he was so angry, considering Kenpachi was right and he had just told his sister in the most stoic way that she was dead to him, but it irked him to no end. You are foolish to think that I would let a commoner such as yourself lay your hacked and battered sword on the head of a member of the Kachiki clan. Do not meddle your barbaric mind into the lives of nobles. Are you trying me, Captain Kachiki? Let's have a fight and see who's the better champion. Jin used Kido on Kenpachi and smiled at Byakuya. I'm sorry my dog has barked so loud. Let me take him out for a walk. He grabbed the string of the Kido and dragged Kenpachi off. After hearing that some fat guy in one of the members of the 4th Division was trying to help Rukia escape, Byakuya met them on the bridge to the Shishinro. He wounded Ganju, especially after finding out he was part of the Shiba clan, and then turned to Hanataro. Rukia threw her useless body in front of him to keep Byakuya from fighting him. Just as he lifted his hand he felt someone grab it. He turned and found Captain Yukitake there. What do you think you're doing? He asked. I could ask the same thing. You are aware that releasing your Zanpakuto here is a Class 1 forbidden act, right? Wartime acts have been issued, I am allowed to use my Shirkai or Bankai as I please. As Captain Yukitake spoke, a sudden spiritual pressure came into the scene. Byakuya had to keep his composure enough not to fall off the bridge. He'd felt that pressure before but the memory seemed to hit a figurative wall in his head so hard that he almost knocked him over. No one noticed because they were happy that Ichigo had appeared, which allowed him to regain his composure. Once all talks were done, Ichigo turned to him and they fought. After fighting an impressive, but not amazingly, improved Ichigo, Byakuya was about to release Senbonzakura on him but the blade was caught in a bandage. Byakuya was a little surprised and even more surprised when Yoruchi appeared. She teased him and despite his judgment, he let the woman do it and ended up in a cat and mouse game of Shunpa. DMN, she's still better than me after all these years. He growled in his head and decided this was stupid. Yoruchi made a promise to make Ichigo stronger in 3 days and left. Byakuya took his place below the Sokayaku, looking up at Rukia. Just as things were about to commence, Ichigo showed up and saved Rukia, surprising everyone with his strength but angering Byakuya for the justice not being served for someone who broke the rules. As he procrastinated for a little bit, Byakuya rushed at him, ready to kill him this time. To his surprise, he was blocked by Ichigo and he looked at him, their eyes locked. I told you, I can see you, Byakuya Kachiki. For a split second, the statement causing Byakuya to be off guard, a memory appearing before him suddenly. 11,111. Byakuya narrowed his gray eyes and took out his sword. Ichigo watched him and just as Byakuya thought he had him, Ichigo was suddenly gone. Byakuya gasped when he felt a sharp point at his neck. Lose. Byakuya moved out Ichigo's hand and put his hand to his neck. How did you do that? What kind of flash step was that? You'll never learn it. 11,111. He shook the memory away and fought with Ichigo, asking why he was trying to save Rukia while Ichigo was asking why he wanted her dead. Apparently, this little Shinigami wannabe didn't understand honor and rules. To execute your own sister with your own two hands, he yelled at Byakuya's determination in Rukia's demise. What a sick joke. No matter what reasons you have, under whatever circumstances, don't ever say that in front of Rukia again. Use your Bankai. I will destroy it. Then I will take you to Rukia and make you cry while apologizing to her. I doubt you can make me to that, Kurosaki Ichigo. You don't know me very well then. You say that your so-called honor demands that you kill Rukia. If that's the case, then stepping on your honor is the reason I achieved Bankai. Ichigo released his Bankai and Byakuya dodged it, another flashback clouding his vision of seeing and hearing the name before. I mean, don't you know why big brothers are born first? Ichigo growled angrily, slashing his Zanpakuto around. Huh? Why are big brothers born first? 111,111. Are you an only child, Kurosaki-sama? You can just call me Ichigo. It's not like I ever say your name properly. But no, I have two younger sisters, Yuzu and Karen. I wish I had siblings. It gets annoying being alone all the time or dealing with Kintano. Don't worry, you'll get one. How? My parents are dead. I know how babies are made. I'm sure you do. No, you adopt a sister. She's a friend of mine. Is that Rukia girl you mentioned before? I won't confirm that. Well. Can you tell me if I'm a good brother or not? 'Cause if I'm not, I want to know. As the next leader of the Kachiki clan, I can't slack in my duties. I think you're an okay brother. You value laws and principles, but I think you need to realize that though those are important, the love of family is more important. Huh? Think of this, do you know why big brothers were born first? Because they were. No. Ichigo knelt down, getting eye level with the boy. Big brothers are born first to protect the younger siblings born after him. His duty, his responsibility, is to keep those after him from being harmed, doing anything it takes to ensure their safety. Do you understand? 111-1111. The suppressant released, causing Byakuya to gasp uncontrollably, like something had popped back into place after being shifted for so long. He looked at Ichigo, knowing him and remembering him as his mentor, his friend. But Ichigo most definitely did not know him. He knew he would have to put up the facade and chose to use these battles as practice. Even when Ichigo's hollow took over him, Byakuya had to make sure he reacted correctly. He would wait for him. His Ichigo. I found you at last, Ni-sama. Ichigo ran through the Precipice World, wondering what would happen when he got back. He didn't know how he changed anything, or if he changed anything. He wondered how Byakuya was doing and he hoped nothing weird would happen. As he ran though, his head began to hurt, pressure hitting the back of his head and running through to his eyes. He closed his eyes and shook his head but ran through to get back to his time. When he came out, Urahara was waiting for him and turned his head as he leaned on his cane. Ichigo looked up at him and Urahara looked down, the shadows covering his eyes eerily. Welcome back, Ichigo. Did you have a nice trip? It was interesting. Indeed. It's safe to assume that you got my sample. Yeah. Ichigo held out the vial of Roryu. Got it. Isn't that odd, Urahara said. What? I did what you asked. He said, wiping his hands on his shihakusho. What's the matter? Well, it's just the fact that I already have the sample I need. He said, pulling a vial out of the sleeve of his kimono. Considering you gave it to me almost 115 years ago. Ichigo blinked at him and he smiled. Hello, Ichigo. You, remember me from way back then? But, I only met you some months ago. That's the thing about time, Kurosaki-san, it changes when you change it. Then, you knew all about me. I didn't, but I guess when you went to get the Roryu, it SCKED you back in time. From this point, you changed history. I knew that you wouldn't know us until now, so I made sure to keep things a secret. You've really changed things, Ichigo. I know. I was hoping that it wouldn't do too much. Everything seems to be the same, but I have heard word that things in the Kuchiki house has changed drastically. But I'm not going to bore you with that. Your spiritual pressure is waning drastically, probably because the serum I gave you is wearing off. I'm sorry, Ichigo, but I can't help you this time. I don't have the equipment to do it. You really will lose it this time. Ichigo smiled and looked at his hands. He had a good run and went somewhere amazing at the last bit of time. I know. But why did I end up right where I started? The Roryu was from this point in time, so it would send you right back where you came from. I thought I'd be in the future. Oh well, I guess it's my time. So it seems. Goodbye, Kurosaki Ichigo. We may never meet again. Thank you, Urahara-san. For everything. Urahara nodded slowly and Ichigo headed home after he went back into his body that Urahara had been keeping safe. As he walked, he could feel the presence of things slowly fading away when he saw Rukia outside of his house. He walked up to her and she turned to him. She knew he was losing his ability to sense her very quickly, but she wanted to be the last one he saw. How long? She asked. Not very long. He said, leaning against the light post outside of his house, not looking at her. Rukia walked up to him, looking up at him. He lifted his eyes to see her and smiled a little, beginning not to see her at all. Rukia knew it too and smirked. You know, just because you won't be able to see me doesn't mean that I can't see you. Ichigo smiled kindly at her. Tell everyone thank you for putting up with me and helping me. I'm glad that I could meet you all, Anne. And what? She was fading, but he wanted him to know. Tell Byakuya that I'm sorry. Rukia looked up at him in confusion as he gave her a kind look. She nodded once. I will. The last of her face was disappearing as Ichigo smiled. Bye, Rukia. Thank you. 17 months later. Ichigo had met up with Skyushin and found his full-bring powers. After a strange and crazy mental takeover by Tsukishima, he thought that Kugo was the only one who was normal until he revealed that he only wanted Ichigo's powers. He watched helplessly as Kugo still had the sword in him, telling him how he and Tsukishima made the elaborate plan to play with Ichigo and get his powers. He drives the sword deeper into him, watching in shock and horror as his full bring is stripped from him and SCKED into Kugo's sword, disappearing. He dropped to his elbows on the rooftop, knowing for sure that his full bring was gone. He remembered how powerless he was during the past 17 months and thought he'd found some resolve with the full bring. He began to cry, feeling like a failure. He reflected on everything that led him to being a Shinigami, what he did and how he helped a lot of people. He couldn't go back to being normal anymore. He just couldn't. Give it back. He said. He sat back up and looked at Kugo's back. Give it back. What are you whining about? I helped you gain your powers, so I think I have the right to take them if I want. In all honesty, I don't see why you're not thanking me for just taking your powers and not killing you. He disregards him again, but Ichigo wasn't going to give up. Give them back, he yelled again. Do you think I'd just give them back to you? He looked over his shoulder to him. Huh? What are you going to do to get them? I have no idea what I'm going to do. All I know is that I can't give up. I've got too many people to help and save. I can't give up now. Kugo was surprised at Ichigo's determination about getting his powers back as Ichigo continued to ask for them back. He suddenly felt something go through his chest. Ichigo turned around and saw his father and Urahara standing there. Have you been manipulated too? Did he invade your memories as well? You betrayed me too, Dad. Ishin looked at him without expression for a second and rolled his eyes. You're an idiot, Ichigo. I'm not even holding the sword. Ichigo looked at his father's hands and saw that they were in his pocket, not holding a blade. He stared at them in confusion as the glow of the sword was moving down the hilt. There was no one there though. You should be able to see him soon. He said calmly. Him? What him? Ichigo thought as the Ryatsu began to form the hilt of the sword and then hands and up arms. He was surprised to find Byakuya holding the sword. Byakuya. Byakuya stared at him stoically, but there was something playing his eyes. Ichigo didn't get to analyze things because the Ryatsu exploded from the sword and a wave sent everyone flying back. When the dust subsided, Ichigo was in his Shinigami outfit and had a new Zanpakuto on his shoulder. He turned to Byakuya and noticed he looked different than before. Not just that he didn't have his Kensekin in his hair, but that he had the acid scars on his face and his hair was actually longer than usual. Byakuya, it's been a while. Kurosaki Ichigo, you lied to me. I did. You are a disgrace. If you give up this easily, we should not have gone through the trouble of making this sword for you. Ichigo smirked. I had a low spot. To the surprise of everyone, Byakuya kicked Ichigo in the face and pressed his face into the ground with his foot. Your excuse is trivial to the matter. No one would get so low to act as you did. I should stab you again and take your powers back for being so cowardly. He poked Ichigo in the head with the sword a little and Ichigo growled, getting up and looking at him, rubbing his head. That's dangerous, you know. You could have pierced my head. This has no blade. It was made by Urahara for you to give you back your Shinigami powers. That's not possible. Kugo stated. He became a Shinigami because he already had them, but I took them. Besides, you don't have enough Ryatsu alone to give to him. Baka, someone suddenly yelled out. Everyone looked up to see a Senkaman open and Ichigo blinked at who was there. Renji, Hitsugaya, Kenpachi, Ikaku, Rukia, were all looking down on them. Don't be absurd, you idiot. Renji said as he grinned. Of course Captain Kuchiki didn't have enough to give him. But Ichigo's got people looking out for him and with the help of all of us, there was enough to go around. You only took the top layer of his powers. Rukia informed Kugo. His true power is deep inside and nothing could take that away. A fight commences between the new Ichigo and Kugo. After sending another Getsuga Tensho attack, Kugo tried to block it but it was too much for him. When he falls to the ground, Ichigo notices how his powers feel different. You notice the difference? Renji asked, looking at him from where those in the Senkaman had appeared behind him. Yeah, all of you are in here but so are others. Even Dad's powers are here. I thought it was a major crime to transfer power to a human. It is. Renji said. But we were ordered to do it, so what are we to do, he said with a shrug. Ordered. Urahara-san presented the sword to the head captain and ordered everyone to put some of their Ryatsu in it to give you your powers back, in gratitude of what you have done for us and Soul Society. Rukia explained. Any sane leader would not do that. Hitsugaya said. There was another reason why he wanted Ichigo to have his powers back. A large purple Ryatsu issued forth and Ichigo looked at it in confusion. The other reason we needed you was because Kugo is not an ordinary human. He's the first and original Soul Reaper. Renji said. Explanations can be expounded later. Byakuya said. Indeed. Kugo agreed. Don't underestimate me, Ichigo. Ichigo looked at Byakuya and grinned. I guess I'll have to destroy him completely, eh? Byakuya didn't smile but his eyes told Ichigo millions. You did promise to show me your Bankai. I did, didn't I? And I never go back on a promise. He turned his focus back on Kugo. When things calmed down and Skyushin was defeated, everyone went to Urahara's shop to get healed and rested. Rukia was seriously injured, but because of her defense of Ichigo and Rukia, she was allowed access to the healing powers of Orihime, though she would have done it regardless of her being her side or not. Orihime healed Ichigo first and said to the others, so Ichigo walked outside to have a look around and just reflect on some things. Now that he got his powers back, he felt right. As he stared at the sky, thinking how great it was to be able to save people again. He hated seeming so helpless against his family and friends, this past endeavor being one of the more personal affairs. He was also getting used to having so many HIATUS rummaging in his body and found it odd that even though they were all from his friends, he could pick out any of them and realize whose it was. Of all the powers he felt, he could feel Byakuya's powers more than anyone else, but he also felt that something strange was with it. Ichigo. He turned and smiled as Rukia came up beside him. Hey. I'm glad things have come back to normal. You and me both. Ichigo, I never got to ask you why you told me to tell Nisama that you were sorry. I mean, when did the opportunity arise that you were ever apologetic to him? It's complicated. He said, rubbing the back of his neck. Rukia got angry and pinched Ichigo's arm very hard. He yelped and swatted at her, grabbing the inside of his elbow where she pinched him hard. I'm your friend, you should tell me everything. Ah. Quit. Quit. Then tell me. Okay. Okay. Sheesh. Something happened before I lost my powers and I somehow went back in time. I met your brother and trained him. We got close, bonded like brothers, I guess. He said with a shrug. Rukia lifted an eyebrow at him. Bonded? You and Nisama? Yeah. You and Nisama, she said, pointing at him and then at Urahara's shack. You up? Rukia. She turned and pointed at Ichigo. You bonded? Byakuya looked at Ichigo as he shrugged. Slightly. Don't try to downplay it, Byakuya. Ichigo said. I do not play down events in my life, Kurosaki Ichigo. Ichigo gave the older Soul Reaper a look and then looked at Rukia. Rukia, me and Byakuya need to have a little talk. Could you give us a moment? Rukia nodded and went inside of the shop, but she went to the window to watch what was going to happen first. Renji noticed her interest in the window and went next to her. What's going on? Shoo. Just watch and see. Ichigo and Byakuya stared at each other for a while, not saying anything. They were taking each other in since they didn't get a good chance to look at each other when they met last. Ichigo couldn't believe the young man he remembered had grown into the man before him. It was strange and sad at the same time, to have missed his growth. Ichigo remembered something from the past and chuckled to himself. Byakuya moved his head slightly at him. You've grown. You really are taller than me now. So it would seem, since you have not grown. Time does that, especially when you time hop. So it would seem. They were silent for a moment when Ichigo smiled a little. You must have forgotten me to treat me the way you have all this time. I surmised that you did not know me and thus, I should keep the knowledge of knowing you a secret until the time you came to my childhood. I had heard rumors that your powers had been waning when you were in my time, so when you did not know me, I knew I must wait until you lost your powers before you knew me again. Well, of course you would deduce that. So you remembered me from all this time? No. Ichigo looked up at him in surprise. I did forget you, Ichigo. He looked down at his former mentor down his nose. You changed me. What do you mean? Something happened that night and I was changed forever. I was instructed that I did not have the ability to withstand it without the help of a serum. It was made from the tests done on you, but since you were in the equation, it caused me to forget you. The time would be right when the serum would break the suppressant and I would be able to control myself. I see. Byakuya tried to keep himself from being childish and yelling at Ichigo for leaving him and not even saying goodbye, but he stifled that side of him and focused on what needed to be dealt with. He knew things had begun inside of him. He could feel at full force now that the suppressant wasn't there indefinitely because the fighting was over and his adrenaline was going down. Rukia and Renji watched intently from the shop, listening hard. Rukia couldn't believe that Ichigo wasn't joking. "This is too much," Renji said. "I'll say." Ichigo smiled up at Byakuya. "When did you remember who I was then?" "The battle when Rukia was going to be executed." "You asked the question that I never got to answer." "I know the answer now." "Ask the question again, Ichigo." Ichigo was very surprised how the deep, stoic, and usually blasé man had held on to a simple phrase as if it were a mantra, a prize. Knowing he valued Ichigo's opinion almost flattered him. But he missed the Byakuya he had come to know and grow fond of. "It's time to stop this stoic ruse. Do you know why big brothers were born first?" Rukia blinked, remembering when Ichigo had posed the same question to Oriheim's brother when he had turned into acid wire and tried to kill Oriheim. What would Nisama know of this? He's too straightforward and straight-laced. He won't give the correct answer. Rukia screamed in her head. "What's he mean?" Renji asked. "Shoo." She growled, watching the two closely. Byakuya didn't say anything for a while and Rukia almost cringed at his lack of social interactions. Byakuya walked over to Ichigo and stood in front of him. He bent down slowly to one knee and looked up at Ichigo. "They are born to protect the ones born after. His duty, his responsibility, is to keep those after him from being harmed, doing anything it takes to ensure their safety." Rukia and Renji stared in amazement and Ichigo chuckled, reaching out and actually rustled Byakuya's hair. Rukia gasped as Renji's mouth dropped. "That is correct, Bya-chan." Byakuya looked down for a second and then looked up. Ichigo's eyes widened. "I've missed you, Ichi-ni-I." "Byakuya." Byakuya suddenly pitched forward but Ichigo caught him as Renji and Rukia ran to help him. "What's wrong with him? What's that on his face?" Ichigo asked in worry. "Holofication," Urahara said, examining Byakuya's face. "Holofication? Like what happened, wait, when that holo attacked 115 years ago? There were experiments going on there. Do you not remember Shinji telling you how they became vizards? Aizen turned them using the Hogyoku. Kuchiki-san was in the vicinity of the incident. And you didn't tell me?" Ichigo yelled. "What would it have mattered? You didn't care about his well-being. Remember, you didn't know about him until a year ago and you didn't feel like an older brother to him. How could anything be said?" Ichigo felt horrible about everything but he also knew it was true. Nothing would have mattered because he didn't know Byakuya like he did until a year ago. He knew nothing of the precocious little boy he was fond of, all he knew was the stoic, expressionless captain who seemed to have something against him. Now that he thought about it, what did he have against him? Byakuya ummed and everyone looked at him in worry. He blinked as Urahara smiled. "Welcome back, Kuchiki-sama. My head feels unfocused. You have someone you need to control, don't you? I already defeated him, there is no need for a second trial." "You fought it," Urahara said, glaring at him under his hat. "But you didn't defeat it. You never defeat it, right Ichigo? The hollow?" Urahara nodded. "No. You never truly defeat it. You have to learn to coexist with it, beat it into SBMSN. It's like a rash that goes away and comes back and fighting is the topical cream. You, Kuchiki-sama, have no control over it nor how to wield it. You're a loose cannon of sorts." Byakuya frowned. "I am not a loose cannon. Your interpretation of me is underwhelming. It's metaphorical, Kuchiki-san. A Kuchiki I know can at least admit when he is not strong enough." "Byakuya, I'm sorry," Ichigo said softly. Byakuya sat up, holding his head and looked at him. "What could you have done? It's not like I've needed your help all this time. I've been fine. It's been suppressed, Byakuya-san." Urahara said with a roll of his eyes at the stubbornness of the man. Now you must try to suppress things yourself. I'm sure Mayuri has had a tracker that has been monitoring the serum he gave you, it would be odd if he didn't. Would one of you mind going and getting it from him? He asked the other captains. Toshiro walked over. I'll go, but that's only because I have to check on Hinamori anyway. I'll send someone to bring it. I'll send him to do it. Oh ho. Yes, do that, Hitsugaya-kun. Toshiro made a face at the overly joyful man but opened a senkaman and left the group. Yachiru popped up from Kenpachi's back and looked at Ichigo. Ichi is back. Now Kenny has a playmate. Ichigo jumped, startled at the girl's sudden appearance. When did you get here? Silly Ichi, I've been here all along. Your mind is crazy. She said with a funny look. But you, never mind. I'll never understand you. Byakuya lifted an eyebrow but turned back to Urahara. What does this tracker do? Urahara opened his fan and fanned himself softly in thought. It will have recorded the brain activity that has been suppressed and record the triggers that hit the suppression walls. I'd have to study it. And when you find the information, what will you do? Well, I can try to help you, but you should really get help from the Vizards. Kurosaki-san might even help you. What? He yelled, blocking Kenpachi's blade from the sudden attack he decided he needed to do. Kenpachi laughed and pushed Ichigo across the shop harshly. You'll help Nisama with defeating his hollow. Rukia said. Ichigo, stop playing around. Renji said with a frown. Do I look like I'm playing around? So, will you help him, Kurosaki-san? Of course I will. Kenpachi, come on. Kenpachi growled and shoved Ichigo out of the shop and into the clearing in the front. Byakuya took the ice bag that Tessai was holding out for him and watched Ichigo fight Kenpachi in the courtyard. He watched as he fought with the crazy man fluidly, as if the two belonged in a constant battle together at all times. Yachiru was laughing and cheering on the porch, egging the two on. It was an odd but nice scene. Are you afraid? Byakuya looked at Urahara as he held the fan in front of his face. A Kuchiki is never dash. I didn't ask if the Kuchikis were afraid. I asked you, Kuchiki-sama. Are you afraid? Byakuya looked at Ichigo as he got angry and pulled his hollow mask over his face. Kenpachi laughed at the added fight and swung his sword around madly. I will admit that I am frightened of what I may become. I have heard what happened to Kai and Shiba from Rukia, and I fear that it will happen to me. But I am a Kuchiki, a nobleman, a soul reaper for longer than him. If he can do it, then so can I. That's the spirit, he said joyfully, slapping Byakuya on the back with a laugh. A senkaman suddenly opened up in the sky and Ichigo stopped fighting with Kenpachi as they both looked up. Byakuya stood up and walked outside, setting the ice pack on the shelf to meet the person coming through. Ichigo watched curiously and then his eyes widened at the person who jumped down from the door. Naya, so it's happening again. It took some maneuvering, but that crazy guy finally gave me the tape. He looked over and widened his smile. Oh. Baya-san, he said, waving in exaggeration. I got it for you. Thank you, Jin. Byakuya said with a small nod. Jin smiled wider and walked up to Byakuya, turning his head slightly. No trouble at all. He turned to Ichigo and his smile widened. Hello, Kurosaki-kun. Long time no see. Ichigo stared at Jin in confusion. You died. I saw you. And you were with Aizen. Yup. Jin said with a smile. Then. I brought him back, Kurosaki-kun. Oriheim said, walking out of the shop. Ah, Oriheim-san. Jin greeted. Inoue. Matsumoto-san and Byakuya-san wanted me to try and I was able to. But Urahara-san told me I should never do it again so long after death. He said I would mess up the distribution of the Soul Society and the world of the living if I did it too many times. You brought me back many times. But it was usually right after you died. It was a bit of a wait for Jin-san. Nye, that's true. Jin said. Besides, I can't do anything anymore. I can never be in a seated position of the Soul Society, Head Captain Yamamoto said so, he said, holding up his pointer finger to quote the old man. Jin was speaking the truth when he said that he was only following Aizen to avenge Lieutenant Matsumoto. With that being proven and no one else to cause a stir, he was imprisoned until a couple months ago. Byakuya explained. Jin waved again and then handed the tape to Byakuya. Here you go. I have to go back and do sweeping. Sweeping? Ichigo asked. What you would call community service. Urahara said from the door of the shop. Bye-bye. Can I use your senkamen, Urahara-san? He nodded and Jin used flash step to leave the company. Ichigo stared after him. What just happened? I'll explain. Urahara said. When Aizen was sealed and everything settled down, Byakuya came to me for advice on Jin. He and Byakuya are friends, you know. Ichigo looked at Byakuya as he sat, listening with his eyes closed. He is an acquaintance. He clarified to Ichigo. Nah. Yachiru yelled, skipping over to Byakuya and pointing. Byakuyan and Snakey have been buddies for a long time. Byakuya's eyebrow twitched a little at being caught and he opened his eyes to look at Ichigo, who was looking at him. He is a close acquaintance. Friends. Urahara yelled, slapping the stubborn man with his folded fan. Your friends, Kuchiki-sama. He turned back to Ichigo. Anyway, he remembered that Orihime had healing powers and wondered if there was anything she could. It was so touching. He even brought him dash. Matsumoto brought him. Byakuya said with deep annoyance. Rukia blinked and Byakuya stared at Urahara with a death glare. Fine then, Matsumoto brought him here and I asked Orihime if she would mind bringing him back for me. Before I did though, I had to ask Byakuya-san why he wanted him brought back. He had betrayed the Soul Society and even made threats against Rukia, siding with Aizen. If he was all about rules, then why bring this criminal and betrayer back to life? He said that you knew Jin was not really a traitor to the Siriidii in all actuality. He was mostly a little boy with a little boy's promise that led him into bad things. That and I remembered when I asked you so long ago if Aizen had anyone in cahoots with him. You said, whatever is done by Aizen's hand. The choice to follow him was the only choice made of their own accord. In dealing with Aizen, I understood then what you meant. So I brought Jin-san back. He was a little too far gone but with help from Urahara-san and Kuratsuchi Taicho, I was able to do it. Mayuri? Mayuri implants detectors in everyone at some point in time in the interaction of people. With a few tweaks of Ryatsu and a couple of small sacrifices from Byakuya and Matsumoto, we got him back. There were a lot of strings to pull. I'm sure Ranjaku is happy. Ichigo said. Urahara-san, what about Nisama? The Hollow. Rukia asked, bringing everyone back to the real situation at hand. Ah, yes, so it's really up to you, Kuchiki-san, but the best course for you would be to visit with Shinji to get training. The head captain seems to be warming up to those of visored kind and has even let Shinji, Hiyori, and Kensei back into the Soul Society. I wonder if your grandfather could pull some strings for you. I do not need my grandfather's help to take care of my own business. Why can't Ichigo teach me? He asked, gesturing to Ichigo. I had to be taught myself and I'm not the traditional student. Even Shinji realized that I was not like they are. You will have to train at a pace you can keep up with. Are you implying that I do not have the capability to learn how to control myself as fast as you, Kurosaki Ichigo? Byakuya asked, a dense feeling surrounding him. Ichigo blinked. I never said that. Then why do you treat me as if I cannot do anything you can? I have been a soul reaper longer than you. I am older than you. I am more skilled. If you can do it, then I can. No. You can't. Ichigo said with a glare. Byakuya was silent for a moment, closing his eyes, and then opening them again, looking at Ichigo. His scara black and irises bright blue. Ichigo only stared at him as Rukia and Renji gasped. I am stronger than you will ever be. I don't think so. You never want to teach me to get stronger, especially when it comes to surpassing you. You're acting like a child. You haven't changed since the day I met you. Spoiled, haughty, abrasive and uncontrolled. Byakuya breathed in and calmed down. He blinked and then looked at Ichigo again, his eyes normal. You are wrong, Kurosaki Ichigo. Then take my advice and let them teach you. Urahara put his hand on Byakuya's shoulder and smiled. Don't worry, Kuchiki-san, you'd be much better taught by the visor than by stinky old Kurosaki-san. Hey. True. His technique is unreliable. Hey. A firecracker. A louse. Hothead. Incongruent. Unreliable. No form. Chaotic and disorderly, they both said. Ichigo was on the floor in a name-calling coma, twitching on the floor as Byakuya turned to Urahara. Do you think they will teach me? If they helped Ichigo, then why wouldn't they help you? You're more valuable than he is. Yachiru laughed. Look, Kenny. Ichi looks like a sea urchin. Byakuya nodded. He believed he would get things done. Byakuya went home and came out of the Senkamen, shaking his head a little from the strange feeling in his head. It's happening again, isn't it, Byakuyan? Byakuya turned to Jin as he came from the shadows and began to walk in step with Byakuya. Yes. Kurosaki-san gonna help ya? No. He is useless. Jin laughed. Nah, he's just sporadic, and analytical. He's creepy. Creepy. I would think you are at the top of that list, Jin. You are too truthful, Byakuyan. But Kurosaki-san is too observant of things. He catches things someone like him should not be able to catch. Hidden meanings, purposes for fighting, things like that. That guy is one odd kid. No wonder you're friends with him. I wonder why you think we are friends in the first place. Byakuya said, not looking at him. You are beneath me. Jin laughed. And I'm smarter than you. See? We both walk on each other's superiority every time we talk. It's a thrilling challenge, Byakuyan. Byakuya looked at Jin as he smiled and sighed. I am not in the mood for your riddling dialogue. Byakuya did flash step and Jin watched him, shading his eyes and his smile turned into a frown. Aizen's experiment is manifesting quickly. Run, Byakuya, while you still can. If Kurosaki-san can't help you, then no one can. Byakuya waited for Shinji to quit laughing as he stared at the captain impatiently. There were other things he could be doing and he felt the hollow inside him beginning to pick at his brain again. He didn't have time to argue or be made fun of. Finally, Shinji stopped laughing and looked at Byakuya. You're really funny, Kuchiki-san, I never knew you were secretly a jokester. I am not joking, Captain Hirako. I do not joke. Shinji frowned a little and stuck his hands in his sleeves, thinking for a moment. So, you were there at the same time that Aizen tried to turn us into hollows? How is that possible? Another hollow appeared that night close to where Aizen used the Hogyoku and I was near it. I was attacked by it and I crawled behind a bush to keep out of the way. When I did, it so happened to be next to the experimentation that Aizen was doing. I was infected as well, but it was not enough to cause hollowification immediately. I see, so you're telling me that now your hollow is starting to take over your body? DMN, kid, you must have good resilience. The hollow was disguising itself as my Zanpakuto. Ah. I have been informed that I should ask you to help me learn how to control my hollow. Shinji rubbed his chin as he thought for a moment. Well, I can't teach you here. I'll give Hiyori a call and see if we still have the warehouse downtown in Karakura town. I'll let you know what she says. Byakuya bowed slightly. Thank you, Captain Hirako. He turned to leave but Shinji called out to him. Hey, Kuchiki-sama. Byakuya looked over his shoulder. Why isn't Ichigo teaching you? He said that each one must learn on their own. His technique is too sporadic and his abilities seem to have been there already for him to develop. I am not that way. Shinji nodded. That's true. Our techniques didn't work on him like it should have. Yeah, I'll let you know what Hiyori says and if she says okay, then you're going to have a long road ahead of you, Kuchiki-san. I am aware of the difficulties. He walked away to go back to his barracks. Along the way, someone ran into him and he stopped as the girl sprawled out on the wooden path. Sorry. He looked at her appearance as she looked at him and she smiled nervously. Captain Kuchiki, what a surprise. Lieutenant Ise. Sorry about running into you. I was thinking. Byakuya nodded and moved around her to get to where he was going. Nanao watched him from the ground and picked up her stuff, putting it back in a nice pile when a shadow loomed over her. She looked up as Matsumoto loomed over her. Hello, Matsumoto-san. You ran into Byakuya-san, I see. She said with a smile, twirling her hair in her fingers. That is a classic trick. I'm glad that you actually have tricks like that. What are you talking about? Nanao asked, pushing up her glasses as she picked up her stack of papers. I just ran into him. Matsumoto laughed and smacked Nanao on the back repeatedly. Good for you, Nanao-chan. Good for you. Matsumoto walked off, laughing at something completely unknown to Nanao, who was more confused than she had been before. What did Matsumoto mean? Toshiro glared at Jin as he smiled at him from the couch. Remind me again why the captains agreed to bring you back to life. Toshiro said with a growl. Now, I'm not that bad. He said with a deep smile. I don't like you. I know. I like that you don't try to hide it. It's refreshing. Again, why are you here? Aren't you supposed to be locked up every night or something? I'm not a criminal anymore. Besides, I'm not allowed to do anything anyway. I'm just a lowly Shinigami. He said, swinging his head side to side as he sang the last line and then gave Toshiro a big grin. Toshiro made a face as Matsumoto walked in. I got sake, she yelled, throwing her hands out. I'm going to invite Hisagi, Nanao, and Kira over and have some fun. Matsumoto noticed that Toshiro was there and Jin was sitting on the couch, waving. You can't come, Captain, because it's only for adults. You're too young. As if I would want to come to anything involving you and alcohol and that man. I'll be practicing my bankai some more. Toshiro left and Matsumoto looked at Jin. You know how to show up at inconvenient times, don't you? I didn't mean to make him angry. I can't help that Inoue-san brought me back. Matsumoto sat beside Jin and looked at the bottle of sake in her hand. It would be nice if you could join us, Jin. Jin poked her cheek and turned his head a little. Kira wouldn't allow it. Besides, I live in the jail now. Maybe you can come visit me one night. He said, opening his eyes to look at her. Matsumoto flushed as Jin got up and left. Anyhow. I just came to say goodnight and go back. Night-night. She watched him leave and then sighed, getting back up to find her 3 companions. 2 days went by and during them, Byakuya was fighting to hold on to his sanity. The hollow was taunting him, trying to come out of him and take over his whole body. Byakuya didn't come out of his barack the whole time until a hell's butterfly came into his open window. Byakuya looked at it and held out his hand for it to light onto it. He listened to it and breathed in, finding it so hard to get up and move. He used Shunpa and ended up at Shinji's barack. Ah, Kochiki-san, I'm glad you came over swiftly. You said you had news. Yes. I have gotten word from Hiyori that the warehouse is indeed still intact and you will start your training immediately. You'll have to use a Jigai for this, I'm afraid. Byakuya lifted an eyebrow. A Jigai? Urahara's orders. He's made a special one for you to help you combat your hollow. I do not use Gigace. Shinji frowned. Kochiki-san, let me tell you something. It's not easy to defeat a hollow that has invaded your very soul. Urahara had to go to a lot of measures to help us when we thought we were all going to die. He saved us and we trained long and hard to gain control over our inner hollows. Ichigo is different, but he trained to get control as well, doing as we asked of him. If you want full control over it, then you need to lower your pride for a moment and think about the benefits. Urahara has a reason he wants you in a Jigai, or he wouldn't ask you to be in one. I do not trust that man. I don't either, but what do you have to lose? I know he kind of kidnapped your sister in the Jigai he gave her, but the cause was just, right? If he hadn't concealed the Hogyoku within her, the rebellion would have taken place way earlier. So, it's up to you, Byakuya-san, Jigai and control yourself, or no Jigai and turn into a monster. What's your answer? Byakuya frowned but put his hand to his head as the hollow laughed at him. Run as fast as you can. You can't defeat me, Byakuya. I've taken over you before and I can do it again. Run far away. I'll catch you and eat you up. The hollow laughed and Byakuya shut his eyes tight. I will do as I am asked. Getting to you, huh? Byakuya nodded. I'll let him know that you're going to take up the offer. Byakuya entered into the human world in front of Urahara's shop, where the mischievous shopkeeper was waiting for him. Hello, Kochiki-sama. Here for your Jigai. I do not enjoy games. Byakuya said with a glare at him. Urahara just smiled and led him into the shop, stopping in front of a slumping figure. This is your Jigai. Why do I have to wear this? Are you going to entrap me as you did my sister? Urahara smirked. No. You've gotten quite opinionated in your transitioning state, haven't you? I do not trust you. Not many people do. But, this is for your benefit, Byakuya-san. I wouldn't ask you to be in it if it wasn't beneficial. That is what Captain Hirako said. There you go. He can vouch that I come through. Byakuya lifted an eyebrow. I doubt that. Just get into the Jigai. He said with a tight smile. Byakuya hesitated but entered the Jigai. As soon as he entered the Jigai, he felt weak and fell to his knees. He looked up at Urahara and suddenly rage took over him as he grabbed him, slamming him against the wall. What did you do to me? He yelled. This is a special Jigai that I made just for you. What did you do? He snarled, slamming him again. This Jigai makes your emotional walls crumble immediately. You cannot hide your feelings nor control yourself in this Jigai. Why? Training with your hollow requires bringing out the hollow. You are too sophisticated. You have trained to keep your emotions in check, to keep the hollow at bay, everything to keep your true self from being revealed. To defeat that thing, you can't hold back. A Kochiki never holds back. I think you're lying. Byakuya blinked and let go of Urahara, looking down at his hands. He knew he shouldn't have believed him. Why did he do that? Why did he let his guard down? Where do I go to train? Urahara smiled and told him how to get to the warehouse. Byakuya tromped into the warehouse, angry that he could no longer use Shunpa to get to his destinations and had to actually walk to the warehouse. When he got there, Hiyori was waiting for him, tapping her foot angrily as she looked at a watch. You're 10 minutes late. That's 3 points off. What points? Byakuya asked. He doesn't know about the points. Hiyori laughed, looking at Lisa and Love with an amused look. What an idiot. Byakuya frowned and Hiyori walked over to him, looking at him intently. Your spiritual pressure is a lot less than I thought it would be. What the heck is wrong with you? That shopkeeper put me in this jigai and I was naive enough to think it would actually help. Hiyori laughed a little. You are pretty stupid if you think that Baldy was going to help you. Are you going to help me or not? Byakuya snapped, already feeling stupid and not needing her to rub it in anymore. Yeah. You'll need to start working out on that. Byakuya looked at the strange contraption and lifted an eyebrow. Wait, Byakuya is with Hiyori at the warehouse? Ichigo asked, looking at Urahara. Yes. How are they going to retrain him? Shinji just used some sort of spell or something to bind me and make me fight with my inner hollow. Since Shinji is in the Soul Society, who are they going to use? If you go over there, you'll see. Ichigo started to leave. Ichigo. He turned back. It would be nice if you were there for him. You're like an older brother to him and it would mean a lot to him if you were there to teach him or just support him. Ichigo smirked. Why do you think I'm worried about him? Besides, he wouldn't care if I came or not. The hollow is what makes him act the way he does. Not back then. Urahara smiled. Just remember that. Ichigo nodded and headed toward the warehouse. Byakuya was using Flash Step again as he raced around the warehouse. Still as slow as ever, Byakuya-san. Your spiritual pressure is very low. Byakuya growled, concentrating on the annoying purple-haired beauty in front of him. He would get her if his life depended on it. He wasn't exactly sure what this age-old game of Shunpa tag had to do with anything though. Why are you making me do this? Have you not noticed? When you first got in that jigai, you couldn't do anything. Now look at you, you're using Flash Step almost as fast as I am. Almost. Byakuya stopped for a second and glared at her. He remembered the strange Flash Step that Ichigo had done when he was younger. He stood still, thinking and waiting, feeling for Yoruchi's presence. If Ichigo can do it, so can I. I'm stronger than him. Yoruchi gasped when Byakuya grabbed her hair tie, her hair falling about her. Byakuya smirked and waved it at her. I win. Access granted, Baya. Hachi. Barrier, now. Hiyori yelled as Yoruchi Flash stepped away. Yoruchi used Bakudo to keep Byakuya's body at bay as a hollow mask formed on his face and the jigai burst away from his body. Ichigo came upon the warehouse and frowned at the barrier that was around it. He put his hand on it and was luckily able to go through it but came upon a terrible sight. The visors that were left were each taking turns with the horrific-looking hollow that was in the center of another barrier. It was screaming and making a ruckus in the barrier. He noticed Yoruchi standing by and walked over to her. Is that Byakuya? Yes, that's him. He used that strange Flash Step that the Arankars use and then the hollow seemed to erupt from him. It took over him so fast that his jigai ripped into shreds. Jigai. Ichigo looked at the disgusting tattered flesh on the ground. Urahara put him in one so that he wouldn't try to suppress the hollow. Now we have this. Hiyori jumped out of the barrier as Byakuya howled and she released her mask from her face. This is almost harder than Baldy over there. Hey, Baldy. We're doing this for you as a favor. Come and help us out, she yelled angrily. Ichigo thought for a moment and remembered what Urahara had said. He owed Byakuya something. He pulled on his hollow mask and jumped into the barrier, fighting the boy he used to know. Inner world. Byakuya was fighting against his inner hollow as it still donned Senbonzakura's armor, acting like it was his Zanpakuto. Give it up, Byakuya. I am more powerful than you will ever be. You tried to hide me with a stoic nature but you can't fool me, Baya-san. You can't fool me. Byakuya kept his words to himself, trying not to let the hollow provoke him any more than he already was. He just wanted to control his hollow and never use it again. He didn't want to use it like Ichigo did or anything fancy like that, but just let him alone. That's all he wanted. You're thinking too hard, Baya-san. Someone said, close behind him. He turned but was pierced through the chest by the sword. He gasped, feeling blood escape his mouth and pool against his clothing. The hollow smirked at him as he leaned toward Byakuya. This is why you will always lose to me. You think too much. He pulled out the katana as Byakuya fell, blood trailing upwards as the field seemed to dissipate and he was falling forever. He was hovering between life and death, being taken over and being himself. He took the time to think. He tried to remember something that would help him. He wouldn't let Ichigo be better than him. If Ichigo could do it, Byakuya could do it. He watched the hollow laugh above him, holding his head back triumphantly, and then thought on the words he had said. You think too much. Byakuya turned his head at that. It would be nice to see the amount of strength you had. With such spiritual pressure flowing out of you all the time, you must have wonderful technique. Ichigo shrugged. I think it's more of a slash and crash thing. I'm not really fluid in fighting, just using more of my brute strength. Slash and crash and brute strength. Your guard is terrible. Ichigo, what are you teaching this kid? Have you not done anything to help his awareness? Yoruchi growled to Ichigo. I could have told you that I was the last person to ask in regards to keeping up with people. I usually go in without reservations and figure it out on the way. Yeah. It's a great way to do it. 'Cause things could happen that you didn't expect and you'll be able to defend yourself easier. Of course. I said it myself way back then. How could I forget? Byakuya remembered that he was in his inner world and that he wasn't really bleeding. He would defeat his inner hollow without thinking of the consequences. It's the way Nisama would do it. He righted himself up, using flash step to run up the void that had been created, Senbonzakura in hand. The inner hollow turned, suddenly aware that the clouds that were beginning to develop in the clearing were leaving, and readied his sword. Byakuya appeared from the hole in the ground and landed in a stance. What is this? What do you think you're doing, little boy? The hollow asked. You can't defeat me. Strategy won't help you. I know. That's why I'm not thinking. I said it once before, it's a great way to do things because things could happen that are unexpected. You are unexpected. I will defend myself. The inner hollow cackled and they fought, Byakuya freely swinging his sword. It felt good not to strategize or think but just use his instinct to block and dodge as he pleased. When he felt he was ready, he held up his sword. Scatter, Senbonzakura. His sword dispersed and Byakuya used the blades to move into his hollow's armor, a chunk of it flying off. He swiped it back again as the helmet flew off and Byakuya pointed his sword at the impostor. I've lived with you far too long. I will control you or you will be destroyed. Bankai. Senbonzakura sunk into the air. Kageyoshi, Senbonzakura. Ichigo had fought the most with Byakuya's hollow form and he was almost worn out. Half of his mask was there when the fighting stopped and Byakuya just stood there, not doing anything. Ichigo waited, ready for anything, when Byakuya let out another yell and smashed the hilt of Senbonzakura into his face, the mask crumbling off. The rest of the hollowed part of him crumbled as well and Ichigo caught him under the arms. Are you alright? Ichigo asked, releasing his hollow mask. Byakuya looked up and actually gave a small smile to him. I fought like you. That's what I had to do. Ichigo chuckled as he helped him up. Yeah. Ichigo. Yeah. I hate the way you fight. Ichigo laughed as he smacked him on the back. I told you would. With some excess training from the visors, Byakuya learned to control his inner hollow quickly and was happy to know that he shouldn't be bothered with it too much in the near future. He bowed to Hiyori and the others. Thank you. Don't think you can just keep that hidden away like your favorite cookies. Hiyori said. It'll try to come back out when you don't think you need it. You'll know when you should use it though, not all willy-nilly like Baldy over there. Ichigo ignored her as he walked with Byakuya outside of the barrier and down the road. So, what will you do? Practice more. Unlike you, Kurosaki Ichigo, I train myself so that I may fight with better precision. Ichigo made a face. Whose technique helped you defeat your hollow? Mine, thank you. It was something that I do not wish to ever experience again. He said, looking at Ichigo. Your fighting style is for you alone, I'm afraid. I cannot do what you do, and though it is unforgivable to say you are better than I, it seems you truly are, only in that instance. Ichigo smirked, knowing he was taking the victory over his hollow using Ichigo's haphazard fighting was getting to him. To make it more humiliating, Ichigo reached up and rustled Byakuya's hair. Don't worry, Byakuya, you'll get the hang of it. Byakuya just punched him in the face and stuck his sword into the air to open a senkaman. Ichigo laughed as he watched Byakuya leave from the ground, proud of him for overcoming his adversary. Some days later, Ichigo got a feeling that there were some hollows in the area and went to check it out. He came across two young soul reapers that were in no position to hold their own against the small horde of hollows. He frowned at their lack of preparation and with the help of his friends, defeated the hollows quickly. They took the two young soul reapers back to Ichigo's house to nurse back to health. Upon the waking of the male soul reaper, they began to eat some bread that Urahara had brought over. His partner came into the room and seemed to be happy that he was alive. As they spoke, a figure appeared on Ichigo's bed and introduced himself as Asciaro Ibern. Any more questions? I don't know who you are, but get off of my bed. Ichigo said with an angry look at the newcomer. You have no authority over where I stand, the man said, laughing. Ichigo, already annoyed with him, kicked him out the window and changed into his soul reaper form. Aren't you going to help me? He asked. We will be right with you. Ishida said. As soon as we finish this bread. Chad said, taking a bite of his roll. Ichigo rolled his eyes and went after Ibern. As he fought with him, he wondered why he had a skull fragment like an Arankar but had a necklace with the similar symbol that Ishida had. He had concluded early on that he was not avenging Aizen. After many taunts, Ichigo felt he had no choice but to release his Bankai. Please, Ibern activated his special technique. To his surprise, nothing happened and Ichigo overcomes him with a shot of Getsuga Tensho. He tells him he wants to question him but Ibern disappears through a shadow. After fighting, Ichigo went back home and talked with the others when Yuki got a phone call. He nodded and spoke with them and then hung up the phone. It seems that Lieutenant Sasaki was killed by an unknown intruder in the Soul Society. What? Chojiro? Ichigo said, shocked. Why would they want to kill him? I don't know. We should probably go back to the Soul Society to see what's happened. He informed his partner. He and Shino leave as well as the others. Feeling he should do something, Ichigo went to do a patrol of Karakura town when Nell dropped in on him from nowhere, yelling about Hueco Mundo. Ichigo called his friends and they listened to what Nell has to say in regards to Hueco Mundo. According to her, Harabel was technically in charge of Hueco Mundo since Barragan and Stark were dead but Harabel was taken as well as Donachaka. Ichigo wanted to know what was going on and decided he wanted to go to Hueco Mundo to help out. I'm sorry but I can't go with you. Ishida said, pushing up his glasses. I am a Quincy and Quincy destroy hollows helping them would go against everything that I am. I know that. Ichigo growled. I called you over here so you could hear what's going on and I knew you'd sulk if I didn't. Ishida was going to argue but kept it to himself. Yuhu, do you need help getting there? Urahara said, sitting in Ichigo's window sill. How did you know we needed help? There's been a lot of strange activity going on. Did you think I wouldn't connect the dots? Ichigo nodded and they all headed to Urahara's shop. Soul Society. After Lieutenant Sasakibe's funeral, the head captain ordered the captains to a meeting where they discussed both the intruders as well as the strange disappearances in the higher districts. Mayuri reveals that because of the intruders, who were identified as Quincy's, killed so many Hollows, there had to be a balance of souls and so killed people in different sections of the Rukon districts that were 60 and above as balance. The head captain only asks why he didn't get permission first and orders the captains to prepare in advance for the coming of the Wanderite, who said they were going to attack in 5 days. Given the circumstances, the head captain feels they will attack earlier than that. Because Ichigo is stuck in Hueco Mundo, the head captain's predictions are right and the leader of the Quincy's tell his stern ritter to attack the Soul Society earlier than expected. As they descend upon the Soul Society, each one seems to pick an opponent to fight with. Renji ends up with Aznat and as he fights him, realizes that something isn't right. As he fights, another stern ritter comes to assist Aznat, masked a masculine. Renji tries to analyze them like he would any other opponent but is surprised to get a different response from his captain. They are here to mercilessly annihilate the Soul Society. Byakuya said, walking into the fight. They are clearly enemies, so. Byakuya pulled his mask over his face as Renji stared at him in awe. Let's crush them. After disabling Masked a Masculine from the fight, Byakuya turned to Renji to tell him something important. If my Bankai were to somehow be sealed, use your Bankai to defeat them. If what Lieutenant Sasakaibe said is true, then they have a way to take Bankais. You need to watch and see how they do it and then we will break the seal that holds it. Understand? But Captain, that mask. This, he said, displaying his mask. Does not concern you. If my theory is correct, he should not be able to take my Bankai because of this mask. I noticed the Vizards still have theirs. Pay attention now. Renji nodded and Byakuya looked at Aznat. He held out his Zanpakuto and let go of the sword. Kageyoshi, Senbenzakura. Before his Bankai could even activate, Aznat used a medallion and the Bankai was stripped from Byakuya, the hollow mask breaking as well. He stared at the Quincy in horror. The Bankais weren't sealed, they were stolen. But Captain, how did he take yours? Aznat suddenly shot out some thorns, which pierced Byakuya. Renji tried to help but Byakuya told him to hold back. You need to watch the fight and see what his ability is. Then let me do the fighting. He somehow took your Bankai even with your hollow powers. I don't think you're smart enough to lure out all his attacks. Byakuya said with a look. Renji sadly agreed and kept his distance. Byakuya wondered why he felt like his limbs were freezing. What is going on? How in the world could he have taken my Bankai when I have hollow inside of me? I thought it shouldn't happen. You must be wondering how in the world I stole your Bankai even though you have hollow powers. Byakuya only stared at the man and he turned his head at him. You are not like the others. Your hollow is not connected to your Zanpakuto. That's not true. Isn't it though? Have you forgotten? Instead of overtaking your Zanpakuto and then acting like it was yours, it just took the liberty of acting like Senbenzakura until your real Zanpakuto spirit spoke to you. It's a separate entity within you that goes against you, not helps you. It doesn't work in unison with you like the others, but tries all it can on its own accord to take over your body and mind. In that sense, Senbenzakura is just a Soul Reaper Zanpakuto like any other to steal. I thought hollows were poison to you. They are. It hurt, I will admit, but it was worth it to see your face looking like that. I'm sure you've realized it now. It's something you thought you lost a long time ago. It's fear. You train so hard to overcome it but those that are pierced by my arrows succumb to them, meaning that everything looks suspicious. Byakuya took in his words and thought it. He thought about how he had overcome his fear. He had defeated the things that made him think of fear in battle. He thought of his hollow and how had overcome that, the last of his fears that he had. He then began to speculate that his hollow had given his Bankai up willingly so that it would make Byakuya weaker. Aznat was right, unlike Ichigo's hollow or the others, it didn't meld with him after it was defeated. It just retreated. What was he? Why was he different from the others? He suddenly felt something go through his chest and gasped. Fear can be overcome. That is what experienced fighters tend to believe. But real fear cannot be overcome, it has no reason and no limit. Fear does not pick a species to issue forth from, and it doesn't get repressed. It is forever churning in the pits of the stomachs of even the most skilled of warriors. With that, as not used Senbonzakura against Byakuya, slamming him relentlessly into the wall behind him. Some hours later, after a delay from Hueco Mundo, Ichigo appeared in Soul Society, appearing where Rukia, Byakuya, and Renji were. He looked at the state of his friends, angry that he couldn't get to them in time. He looked over and gripped his Zanpakuto hard as he saw what looked like a shallow cave of blood, and in the middle of it was Byakuya. He walked up to him slowly as Byakuya opened his eyes a little and saw him. Are Rukia and Renji alive? Yeah, they're fine. He said softly. Good. I won't last much longer. Despite being a captain of the Godii 13 and harboring a hollow, I was unable to defeat the enemy that invaded the Siriidii. I let many valuable soldiers die and caused the suffering of their subordinates and their families. And in the end, I was defeated miserably. He said, lifting his head a little to look at Ichigo. He smiled a little. I am ashamed of all of this. On the other hand, you are a human that would normally never be involved with this, but I am going to ask of you a favor, okay, Nisama? Just one last request, please forgive my despicable behavior. He was too weak to keep the tears at bay, this time crying both human tears and the white tears of the hollow mask. Please protect the Soul Society, Kurosaki Ichigo. After the first attack on Siriidii, Ichigo's Zanpakuto had broken and most of his comrades were wounded beyond belief. The Zero Division came and took him and his friends to the dimension of the Soul King, where they got their strength back, and Ichigo found out that his Zanpakuto wasn't really his Zanpakuto. He acquired two Zanpakutos, one of the only few Soul Reapers with two separate ones. With that, he was dressed in oaken clothing to be sent back to the Siriidii through the 72 barriers between the two places. As Ichigo passed through the barriers, he felt like something wasn't right with his passage. He didn't know what it was, but going forward through the barriers seemed to be harder and harder. As he neared the lower barriers, a shock wave of sorts sent him faster and faster into the Siriidii, where he crashed into the ground. He thought he was going to land smoothly, but it seemed as if his landing was nothing but. In fact, he actually stumbled back, vertigo taking over him for a moment, and he fell to the ground, blackness enveloping his sight. Is he alright? I don't know. Kurosaki-san. Kurosaki-san. Can you hear me? Kurosaki-san. Ichigo ummed and looked around for a second. He was surprised to see Orihime above him. Inoue. Oh, good, you're all right. We were worried about you, she said with a happy smile. He sat up and put his hand to his head, the feeling of dizziness still there. He looked around and frowned. At where he was. Where am I? The 4th Division. Oh. Did something happen? We're not quite sure. Rukia-san found you passed out in the middle of the courtyards and you were brought here promptly. Ichigo nodded and touched the back of his head for a moment. There was still a bump there, but he was sure that he was in the right place. He looked at Orihime and noticed she was in a shihakusho. Why are you dressed like that? Huh? What do you mean? Ichigo stood up, rubbing his still aching head. Your clothes. Why are you dressed that way? Orihime blinked a little and then laughed a little, hitting Ichigo on the back. Wahaha, you're so funny, Kurosaki-san. Ichigo coughed and Orihime stopped smacking him. Ichigo looked around and frowned, wondering what was going on. He then remembered what his task was and looked around frantically. I have to help everyone. I have to help them defeat the Sternritters. He began to leave, but Orihime grabbed his arm. Kurosaki-san, you're not well. You need to stay here. Inoue, I'm fine. Let me go. I have to save the Soul Society. It's going to be annihilated if I don't do something. Let me go. Inoue. Hanataro. Ichigo tried to pull away from Orihime, but he felt something prick his skin and his body went limp. A few hours later, he opened his eyes again and sat up, looking around. What the hell? What did they give me? I'm glad you're awake. Orihime-san said that you weren't doing well. Ichigo looked over and saw Renji standing in the doorway of the room. He looked different though. His red hair was very long now, in a braid over his left shoulder, and he seemed to look older. Ichigo frowned, looking at his shihakusho, and the white haori that he was also sporting. Ichigo turned his head. What are you wearing? My uniform. Are you sure you're alright? He shook his head and found his zanpakutos by the door and stuck them in the holders. He made his way outside and was surprised to find the Siriidii in good shape. In fact, it looked brand new, as if it hadn't been half destroyed at all. He looked around for a second in confusion as Renji walked up behind him, concerned for his friend. Are you alright? I thought that the Sternritters had pretty much obliterated the Soul Society. They did. Renji said with a curious look to his friend. Ichigo looked back at him as Renji looked at him in concern, and Ichigo walked over to him, staring at him up and down. You look different. How is that? Your hair, your shihakusho, your face. My face? Yes. It looks weird. Well, you look weird too. Did you cut your hair or something? And what's with that outdated outfit? We got rid of those things a long time ago. Or at least have them in the back of the closets. The back of the, I just got here from the Zero Division. Renji blinked at him, staring at him with his mouth open. He closed his mouth and nodded to himself. I think we need to have you see something. If you don't realize this, we know something is really weird. Follow me. Ichigo followed after him, hoping to find some answers. They walked into one of the squad barracks as a group of Soul Reapers were yelling at something in the middle. Renji stopped walking and Ichigo stopped beside him. Why are we here? Just listen for a moment. Ichigo did as he was told. Kenpachi. 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 Yaya. Ichigo had a feeling that Kenpachi had won some sort of fight between the squad members and expected to hear the infamous laugh of his constant foe. Instead, he heard the maniacal laugh of a female. Ichigo turned his head as the crowd cleared and a beautiful woman with long pink hair stood over a pile of bodies and was laughing her head off, blood sprays staining her outfit as well as her skin. Who is that? Renji turned quickly to him and knew that something was wrong. Ichigo, that's your wife. Ichigo blinked in confusion at Renji as Renji stared at him in his own confusion. Ichigo looked back at the woman who was talking to the other members of squad. She was slightly tall for a woman, but she was also dressed very inappropriately as well. Her shihakusho had the arms torn off to match the Haori's arm length that just barely went over her shoulders. She was wearing the kosode open and a bandage covered her quite large brsts. Her long pink hair was about to her hips and there was a crossbone on the side of her head. There was a scar across her neck and across her chest where it looked like she may have gotten into a fight that was too intense. You're telling me that you don't recognize her? Renji said with worry in his voice. I've never seen that woman in my life. She's going to be pietist. Renji grumbled, looking at the woman. I would suggest you act like you didn't say that. Wait, what the hell is going on here? I don't understand what's happening. Ichigo looked over as the woman looked over at him and her face lit up. Ichi. You're back. She ran over to him, her arms held up high and jumped, forcing Ichigo to catch her in his arms as they both toppled to the ground. She straddled his midsection as she pulled up from him, looking down at him with a wistful expression. I thought you said it was going to take a month or two to complete your mission. You lied, Ichi. He looked at Renji, who made a gesture not to reveal he didn't know what was going on. I wanted to surprise you. Yup. The woman frowned and leaned back on Ichigo's bent legs. This is a weird way to surprise me. I thought I'd try something different. If you, Renji moved his hand in a circular motion, indicating that it was going well. If I surprised you the same way all the time, it wouldn't be a surprise, now would it? The woman grinned, a hint of deviousness in it, and put her hands beside his head on the ground, straddling over him. True. You're so smart, Strawberry-kun. She leaned down to kiss him, but Ichigo could only take so much and put his hand in her face. The woman suddenly back-flipped from his lap and pulled out her sword. Aha! I knew it. Kenpachi Renji started as the woman turned her sword to him. What the hell is this, radish? Huh? Where's Ichi? Where's my husband? She growled, her spiritual pressure becoming dangerous. Renji grabbed Ichigo and ran off with him in tow. As the two hid, breathing hard, Ichigo hit Renji over the head with his fist. What the hell was that? Why did you make me lie to her? I thought she wouldn't realize anything, but I was wrong. Who was that? That's not Kenpachi. Yes it is. No, the Kenpachi I know is a big guy who's crazy with spiky hair, an eye patch on one eye, and a long scar down his face. That's the Kenpachi I know. Renji blinked at him with a horrified look. You mean Captain Zaraki? Yeah. Ichigo, Zaraki hasn't been captain of the 11th Division for almost 35 years. Huh? What do you mean? I just got back here from the 0 Division and the Sternritters were attacking. The Quincy invasion? I came to help everyone. You did. 100 years ago. Ichigo blanched at Renji and then began to laugh. Your jokes are still bad, Renji. Come on, stop playing. I'm not playing. That happened 100 years ago. We defeated them. Ishida-san defeated them from the inside and is now the new king of the Quincy's. Don't you remember any of this? Ichigo looked at Renji in horror and backed away from him. This can't be happening. You're wrong. Ichigo dash. Stay away from me. I don't know what this is, but this isn't funny anymore. This isn't. Right. Ichigo used flash step, ignoring Renji's yells. Renji walked back to Squad 11 and was met with a slightly roughed-up blade as the pink-haired woman came from behind the door. Radish. Kenpachi. What have you done to my husband? Did you really think I wouldn't notice? For a second, I thought you wouldn't. I can't explain it either. Then you'd better find a way. I like you, Radish, and per Ichigo, I take your presence at inopportune moments, but that was not my Ichigo and we are alone. Yachiru-san, I swear that I'm as confused as you are. Yachiru moved her Zanpakuto and glared at Renji. Fix him. I don't think I can, but I will ask someone to maybe help him. I don't care what you do, just fix it, Radish. Ichigo paced back and forth in between some hallways of the Siriidii, wondering what in the world could have happened. The fight with the Quincy's was over 100 years ago. How can that be? I just left the 0 Division and came back to the Siriidii. There's no way that this can be. He looked up at the sky. It can't be 100 years in the future. He looked at his hands and then messed with his hair. Is that why Renji looks that way? He became a captain then. But why is Inoue here? That doesn't make any sense, and who's that girl, my? He gulped. Wife. I have a wife. And she's the Kenpachi. Then where's Zaraki? I'm so confused. He yelled, pulling his hair in confusion. Duh. Someone explain what's going on. Ichigo. Ichigo turned and was thankful to find someone who didn't look any different. Byakuya. Renji said that you were acting odd. He claims that the things I came to do were already done 100 years ago. I think I'm dreaming. Byakuya frowned a little. You are not dreaming, I'm afraid. It really is 100 years from where you claim to be. The head captain would like to speak with you, for he has a question in regards to your arrival. Oh, okay. He walked with Byakuya for a moment. So, Renji's a captain now? He is in charge of Squad 8. Oh. Do you think I'm crazy too? No. Ichigo looked up at him as he looked at him patiently. How can I say you are crazy when you came to me as a child 100 years in the past from your time so long ago? I'm probably one of the few who believes you without a doubt. Ichigo let the breath he was holding in come out, feeling better knowing that he had one person on his side. So you're almost 1,000 years old. More than that. You have control over your hollow? Byakuya smirked. I have had it controlled completely for almost 50 years. Your lack of confidence is nostalgic, Nisama. Ichigo chuckled. I will never get used to you calling me that. Byakuya just nodded as they made their way to the head captain's barracks. Ichigo held back his surprise at seeing Kairaku sitting in the head captain's quarters. He remembered that Yamamoto had died but wasn't expecting the pink kimono-wearing man to be the head of the Soul Society. Hello, Ichigo. Head captain. Please sit. There is much that is needed to be discussed. I'll say. Ichigo mumbled, sitting on the pillow that was in front of Kairaku's table. Byakuya hovered in the shadows as Kairaku looked over Ichigo with his one uncovered eye. So it's true. I wasn't sure if Captain Kuchiki was telling the truth, but from the feel of your spiritual pressure, it's the only explanation. My spiritual pressure? It's so low. Ichigo made a face. Besides, you're shorter than when I talked to you about your assignment not too long ago, and you're still wearing your oaken clothing. Which leads me to ask the question, how did you get here? With some fill-ins from Byakuya, Kairaku was finally convinced of Ichigo's time travel and concluded out he got to the time period he was in now. The oaken clothing seems to be the culprit. You must not have done it right on your journey to your destination. How is that? Ichigo asked, looking at the white clothing. The oaken clothing helps shield you from the 72 layers between Siriidii and the Zero Division home where the Soul King lies. The Zero Division is in another dimension. It's quite possible that not only did you travel through time, you must have somehow moved off course and are possibly in another dimension. So, all this isn't even real? No, it's real. It's just different from what may be. We need to get you back to the right place and time. Here, you have defeated the Sternritter, and Siriidii has been at peace with any other enemies for 100 years. If you were supposed to do the same in your world, then as of right now, in this time, if you went to your world, I have a feeling there would either be no Siriidii or worse, no Soul Society at all. If that were the case, then that would collapse the very worlds. Byakuya said with a frown. Ichigo looked between the two. But what about me? If I'm from that world, won't I vanish or something? Not necessarily. We will need to speak with Squad 12 about this matter immediately. Captain Kuchiki, please take him there so that a thorough study can be done. If we don't get him back, his world may collapse. Ichigo was a little afraid, but Byakuya grabbed his arm and dragged him away. Ichigo stared at the person who was sitting in the chair. She stared at him as he stared at her, her fuchsia hair and strangely familiar green and white hat startling him. Who are you? I could say the same. Do you even work here? Tachuri-chan, please get out of Daddy's seat. Ichigo looked up as Urahara came from the back and he blinked. Kurosaki. You're back. This is not our Captain Kurosaki. Byakuya said. The head captain believes that he was thrown off course somehow and ended up in our time and space. You mean, you've traveled through time again, Ichigo? Seems so. The head captain seems to think I may have come to a different universe as well. He said that you might be able to help me out because if I disappear from my universe then my world could collapse because I didn't stop the Sternritter. And how did you get back here? Who is that? Urahara blinked but smiled that mischievous smile Ichigo remembered. First, Mayuri went with you on your mission. I'm not really in a seated position, but the head captain knew that Soul Society couldn't be without someone to look after the research and development center. A fiasco happened last time and he decided that I could be contacted and brought back through his authority only on Mayuri's leaves. Second, this is my daughter, Tachuri. Wait, is this that Ichigo you told me about? The one who defeated Aizen and then the Quincy's, the younger girl said, looking at Urahara. Yes, that's him. Tachuri looked at Ichigo and made a face. He doesn't look like much. You don't look too special either. Ichigo growled. Urahara laughed. Give me your arm, Ichigo, and let me draw some blood to study. Also, take off those oaken clothes so that I may study what may have happened in your travel from the Zero Division. Ichigo did as told and Urahara gave a small smile. That outfit is nostalgic. He cleared his throat. I shouldn't be too long with the results. You should have a look around. Have you met up with anyone you know yet? Some people. Urahara nodded and pulled out a syringe to get blood from him to study. Ichigo rubbed the place where Urahara had gotten blood from him. It had taken longer than expected because Ichigo's blood venae kept blocking Urahara's needle and breaking them. After much force, Ichigo had become calm enough to not subconsciously use the blood venae. Seems the Soul Society has become less rigid since I last came. I mean, even Urahara is allowed back in. As he said, it was only because of an incident some years ago. Some of the members went in and touched some things that shouldn't have been touched. It caused a few deaths, third seat Akon being one of them. After that, the head captain declared that Squad 12 should be monitored by someone qualified at all times. The only two people for that are Captain Kuratsuchi and Urahara. I see. So, what's new with you, Byakuya? Nothing much. Nothing much. Is that what you call me? Byakuya frowned as they both turned around and Nanao walked up, pushing up her glasses. Hey, Nanao. Ichigo said. Ni-sama. She said with a small bow. Captain Kairaku told me about what happened. I'm sure you're very confused. You have no idea. Have you met up with Kenpachi yet? Renji said he was at the barracks, but all that was there was this girl with pink hair who was very angry and apparently my wife. Nanao looked at Byakuya and nodded slowly. Ah, then you don't know then. No worries, I'm sure word will get around and people will come out of the woodwork to see you. Why? Don't you guys see me every day? We see the Ichigo we know, but it's not every day you get a literal blast from the past to surprise. Oka-san. Oka-san. Nanao looked behind her as Renji walked up with a young boy in his arms. I say, Nanao-chan, do you see Chinea anywhere? He said, putting his hand over his eyes to search. Aji-san. I'm here. I'm here. Oh. Nanao, did you hear my sack of flour talking? Aji-san, it's me, the young boy giggled. Renji looked down and gasped overdramatically. When did you turn into Chinkuen? I've been here all the time. Renji chuckled and put the child down as it ran to Nanao. Oba-san showed me the flowers. Did she? Yeah. Chi-Chi, who is that? Ichigo looked at Byakuya but he ignored Ichigo's stare. You know Ichigo. Ichi-ni. Yes, this is him. Ichigo looked at the young boy as he looked at Ichigo with innocent blue-gray eyes and hair and black as coal. As they stared, he giggled and snuggled his face in Nanao's neck in childish embarrassment. Ichigo pointed at him. Is this your? This is my son, Chinea Kuchiki. Ichigo looked between him and Nanao and then put the two together, his eyes widening. You mean you and Nanao? How did that happen? I always liked him and after some strange coincidences, we ended up courting. Nanao said with a small smile. Ichigo couldn't believe that not only was Byakuya married, but had a child. He just shook his head as Renji walked up to him. What did they find out? He asked Byakuya. He is from the past and possibly a parallel universe. Ah, well, that makes much more sense I guess. How about you walk with me and I'll let you see some old friends. Ichigo nodded and left with Renji, still trying to fathom that Byakuya had a child and was married to Nanao. She was the least person he had expected. Renji and Ichigo walked around for a little bit, talking discursively about different things that were a little different from Ichigo's time. So you really don't know what will happen then? Renji asked. I know that I was sent to fight the Stern Ritter, but if I'm gone, I'm afraid of what will happen. I'm sure our Ichigo will be back shortly and then Captain Kuratsuchi and Urahara-san will work together to find a way back for you. Do you really think those two will work together? Don't they hate each other? They tolerate each other enough to get things done. Hey, you said that Rukia found me. Where is she? She's at the house. Is she married too? I mean, I never would have imagined Byakuya getting married to Nanao. It was a shock to everyone, I think. Everyone except Matsumoto, who somehow knew that it was going to happen. But Rukia is married too, yes. Oh. I wonder who it is. Ichigo laughed to himself. The guy she married probably has to look at those ridiculous drawings and listen to her gripe all the time. So who's the unlucky guy? Renji frowned. It's me. Ichigo blinked and then began to laugh uncontrollably, bending over to lean on his knees. You can't be serious. You and Rukia? Bwahahaha. That's almost as funny as if I got together with Hiyori, or Soifan. Or Yachiru. Bwahahaha. Renji made a face at him and Ichigo looked up, wondering why he wasn't laughing as well. Ichigo stood back up as Renji just watched him and he cleared his throat. You really are serious? Yes. Oh. And you should watch what you say because dash. The tingling of bells sounded and Ichigo was almost happy to hear them. He turned around and frowned again. You. Kenpachi. Renji said softly. I would like a word with my husband. Who are you? Why do you keep calling her Kenpachi? He asked, Renji. Because she is the Kenpachi. She earned the title. Ichigo looked at Yachiru and noticed the tiny bells attached to the bottom of her hair. He squinted a little and walked up to her cautiously. Who are you? Yachiru rolled her eyes and walked around him, going behind Renji. I'm not going to make it easy on you. I'll give you a hint. She went behind Renji and poked out from his shoulder, her face taking on a cute look. Ya. Ichi. Ichigo's eyes widened and he backed up a little. Yiichiru. She stood up. Tada. Ichigo rubbed his neck in embarrassment. I feel kind of stupid for not recognizing you. I guess you're not that cute little girl anymore. Indeed. Captain, I will take my husband now if you don't mind. You know that's not your husband. Yachiru glared at Renji and then at Ichigo. She grabbed Ichigo and threw him over her shoulder, making Ichigo yell. Thank you. After running for what seemed like hours, Yachiru finally put Ichigo on the ground and Ichigo rolled over, crab walking away from her. Yachiru got on the ground next to him, crawling toward him. Ichigo backed up against a tree as Yachiru crawled close to him. She crawled right up on him and stared at him with her dark pink eyes. Ichigo didn't dare move as she stared at him and she smiled at him. Are you afraid of me, Ichi? No. I'm afraid of what you may do to me if you're the new Kenpachi. Yachiru backed up and frowned at him. You're afraid? Why? My Ichigo would never be afraid. That's why I married him. Then go snuggle next to him. I still remember you as a little girl, like this, he said, showing her size with his hands. I can't fathom this. Besides, this isn't even my timeline. Yachiru growled and punched Ichigo in the face, sending Ichigo falling down the hill that had been climbed. He finally rolled to a stop and sat up, cracking his back and shoulders from the fall as he heard the bells from Yachiro's hair tingling from the hillside. He looked up as she jumped down the hill and quickly met her sword as she brought it down. "What is your problem? I haven't done anything to you. You and Kenpachi dash." "I'm Kenpachi." "Zaraki, whatever. What is with you two and fighting me out of the blue?" Yachiru didn't answer as the two fought together, seeming to make a dance out of it, her moves a little more graceful than Zaraki's had ever been. In fact, he found himself enjoying it, for after a while it became more of a game than a fight. He finally swiped his leg under her and flipped her backwards onto the ground, but not before she used her own leg to make him fall as well. He fell over her and found himself lost in her bosom. After struggling for a moment, he sat up above her and she smirked at him. "This is why I married you, Ichi. You could always defeat me, the Kenpachi. I had hoped you still had it in you. If I can defeat Zaraki, then I think I could defeat you. Seriously, though, what is it with you and him? Every time we meet it's like we have to fight. Can't you just say, hello?" "That was me saying hello." Yachiru moved him off of her and sat up, sticking her blade into the ground beside her. "You are obviously too young to understand how a man and a woman show each other affection." "No. I'm about the right age," he said with a look. "I mean, you, as in Ichigo. My Ichigo knows me well and knows what makes me happy. I greet him with the same greeting I did to you. We fight like that all the time and I'm happy to know that your finesse wasn't different than my Ichi. I'm sorry, Yachiru, but you know that I'm not your Ichigo, right? You'll have to excuse the way I think and feel about you because I don't know about it yet. In my time, I have no idea who I will end up with. If it happens to be with you, I will know what to do, but as for now," he moved her face to look at him. "All I remember is a little girl who rode on the Kenpachi's back with bad direction, a knack for nicknames, and confidence in her captain." Yachiru smirked and then turned her head at him. "I wasn't aware of how much of a smooth talker you were. I guess we fight too physically for much words to be said. I kind of like you, Ichi." "Ichi?" "Younger Ichigo. I'll get confused if I don't." "Oh, why are you looking at me like that?" Yachiru grinned and tackled him to the ground. "Geez, I never thought I'd get away from her. For the Kenpachi, she sure is lovey-dovey. It's only with you that she's like that." "Oh, Renji. There you are. You keep popping up. I've been designated by both the head captain and Byakuya to keep an eye on you. I had a feeling Kenpachi would take you to your favorite spot, so I just waited until you either fell all the way down the hill or you came out safe." "Ah. So we're always like that?" "Pretty much. It's a weird relationship, but you two seem to like it and it goes well. Besides, the Kenpachi can't be considered soft, but she only lets down her guard just a little when she's with you." "Then, couldn't someone use me against her?" "Nah, she would just get mad at you for being so stupid as to get caught that she'd kill you before the enemy." The two of them laughed when Ichigo remembered something. "Oh yeah. When I was in Squad 4 I saw Orihime there and she was dressed in a shihakusho. Why is she here?" "Oh, I guess you wouldn't know. Considering it's been 100 years, her human body died a long time ago. A mission gone wrong, which is why she still looks young. You were devastated when it happened, but some years later, she showed up at Siriidii, displaying her healing powers, and was given a lieutenant's position in Squad 4 almost immediately, especially when the head captain realized who it was." "I see. What about Chad and the others?" "As I told you before, Ishida became the new Quincy King, and though it looked like he betrayed us, he was actually infiltrating and helped to defeat them from the inside out as we were going from the outside in. You almost killed him, but when he defended you from a powerful attack from Yuha, you realized what was going on and you both defeated them. No one really knows where Chad is, but we all assume he died in the world of the living and is somewhere in the Rokon district. Of course, most of your friends from Karakura town died, though some of them are here in the Siriidii and others are about. It's hard to keep track of things." "I see. What about my sisters? I was told I could not disclose anything about your family. Renji said, crossing his arms in an X, sorry. You'll have to figure that out on your own. Ichigo made a face as they walked along the pathways. Suddenly a random Soul Reaper appeared and gasped. Captain Kurosaki, he said, bowing respectively. We were not aware that you were back. Ichigo made a face and looked at Renji. It looks like your squad found you. Oh. Is there anything you require of us, Captain? No. Carry on. Ichigo said with a shrug. He bowed away as Ichigo watched him and lifted an eyebrow. Is there a reason he looks scared of me? You don't like your squad to be lazy. If they are wandering around, they better be in search of you to find something to do or doing what you asked of them earlier. You run a tight shift. You're almost as bad as Byakuya-sama. How did he take your marriage to Rukia? He said it was expected. Renji said with a frown. Anyway, is there anyone in particular that you want to see? Yes. I want to see where Zaraki is. There's some questions that I have in regards to Ichiro. Renji made a face but nodded. Okay, but I'm just going to warn you that it will be a little odd. Ichigo furrowed his eyebrows and followed Renji. Matsumoto-san, there is nothing wrong with him. Ichigo heard Orihime say as they went to squad, I don't know why you keep bringing him here. Look at him. Look at him. Matsumoto, if you don't stop bringing me here about this, I will have to report that you are too drunk all the time to be a seated officer. A deep voice that Ichigo was not expecting came from the room they were going toward. Being nosy, Ichigo stuck his head in the door and saw Matsumoto crying against a very tall man with white hair and he sighed. Orihime looked and saw Ichigo and waved. Kurosaki-kun. The head captain has informed everyone of what's happened. It's so odd how that happened, huh? Matsumoto turned to Ichigo and her face brightened. At least this Ichigo hasn't changed. Unlike you, she wailed. Ichigo looked at the person she was crying against and was surprised to see someone who looked a lot like Toshiro. He turned around and smiled a little. It's odd to see you shorter than me. Ichigo turned his head for a second and then pointed. You must be Toshiro's dad. He said with a confident smile. Toshiro growled. It's Captain Hitsugaya, Kurosaki. Look at him, baby Ichigo. Matsumoto said, crying against Toshiro again, and he rolled his turquoise eyes. He grew up so fast. I miss the old days when I could cuddle your cute head against my chest. You're so cold, Captain, she wailed. I don't miss that at all. He said, prying her off of him. Get off of me, Matsumoto. Wait, you're Toshiro. It's Captain. Captain, he yelled, pushing Matsumoto away. Wow, you really did grow. It was like a summer. He just grew like a weed. Matsumoto cried in the corner. Orihime looked at Ichigo and smiled. She's taking it pretty hard. Thanks a lot, Captain. Ichigo looked up at the familiar-sounding voice as Toshiro turned around and Ichigo blinked as the girl stopped in the doorway. Ichi and I, you're back, she said, looking at him with a turn of her head. Karen. Here, you'll need this for the pain. Someone said from the hallway. Oh, thank you. Look, who's here, Captain? She said, pointing. Ichigo's eyes widened as the man looked in. The eye patch, the scar, the prominent features. It was him all right. But the normal non-maniacal smile on his face was what caught Ichigo's attention. Keikenpachi. The man who looked like the Kenpachi that Ichigo knew turned to him and smiled a bigger smile. Hello, Ichigo, it's been a long time since I've seen that face. What the hell is going on here? What do you mean? Ichi and I, did you hit your head somewhere? Karen-chan, this is not our Ichigo. He's from the past. Oh. I guess that's why you're still wearing that outfit. I was about to ask why you squeezed back into it, but you haven't squeezed into anything. Weird. Said, going around Ichigo and analyzing him. How is my clothing weird when that guy acting all nice is weird? Does no one feel the confusion of this guy's presence in such a calm setting? Kurosaki-kun, Captain Zaraki is the head of Squad 4 now. Orihime said. Ichigo looked at Zaraki for a moment as Renji walked in. Oi, there you are. You walked away from me. Ah, Captain Zaraki, you finally came out. Is there a reason why Ichigo is confused as to what my position is now? He asked, pointing to the still flabbergasted Ichigo. He still thinks you are the captain of Squad 11. Zaraki laughed. I haven't been the captain of Squad 11 since Yachiru defeated me. Ichigo came to life at that. And you're okay with that? She defeated me just like a Kenpachi should, though she should have killed me. Instead, she left me to rot on the ground. I picked myself up to fight again, but she flash-stepped toward me with her sword at my throat. She said, Ken-chan, I am leaving you with your life because I cannot just kill you. Take this defeat that I am the new Kenpachi of Squad, live in shame, but do not cowardly take your life or have me take it. So, after a while, I decided to take up the former Kenpachi's footsteps and became the captain of Squad 4 instead. And you're okay with that? Yes, I'm fine. Although, I have wanted to spar again for old time's sake. He said, putting his hand under his chin. I was going to ask Ichigo when he got back from his mission, but since you're here. He's got some things he needs to do, Captain Zaraki. Renji said, pulling Ichigo away from him. Well, if you want to spar again before you go, I'll take you up on it, he said with the maniacal grin that Ichigo remembered. Ichi and I, let's walk together. Toshi, come on. Karen said, motioning for Toshiro. Toshiro pulled himself away from Matsumoto, who was again, crying, and left her in Orihime's care. I swear, ever since she got PRGN she's been over-emotional about everything. Toshiro said, wiping his sleeves off. She's PRGNNT. Aha. Karen said, skipping a little. Captain Ikamaru is a little concerned for her though. Ichigo stopped. Jin. Yeah, him. Toshiro said with a look. I still hate that guy. Wait, Jin is a captain again? How did that happen? After the Sternritter attack, there were a lot of seats left open. Many captain and lieutenant seats were left open with not enough qualifying people to fill them. Squads 3, 4, 7, 8, and 9 were left without a captain, a lieutenant, or both. The head captain had to fill those positions pretty quickly, although Squad 4 and 7 were left captainless for a long time. Eventually, the only one that was really qualified for Squad 3 was Ikamaru because he had been the captain before, and your father took up Squad 7 since I took his place as captain of Squad 10. Wait, my dad's here. Yeah, he's somewhere around here. Karen said. What squad are you in? Ichigo asked. I'm in Squad 5, but I'm not a seated officer yet. Where's Yuzu? Karen looked away and sighed. Yuzu didn't have that much spiritual pressure. When you left to join the Soul Society, my spiritual pressure increased and I became a substitute Soul Reaper just like you with Toshiro's help and all. But Yuzu never got enough and so she grew up normally. When I was 17 I decided that I wanted to be here with you and learn more about my abilities and such. Dad stayed with Yuzu until she got married and then came here. She died a while back but I haven't been able to find her in the Rukan district. I see. She married Jinta, if that's any funny consolation. Karen said with a sad smile. Ichigo did have to admit that that was kind of funny, but he felt a pull at his heart for Yuzu's death. Did she die peacefully? Yeah. She was an old lady when she went, so nothing traumatic like with Orihime. Oops, she said, holding her hands over her mouth. Ichigo lifted an eyebrow. What do you mean? I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said anything at all. If you ask Orihime-san she will probably gladly tell you. You know her and her weird optimism. Toshiro said with a roll of his eyes. Ichigo nodded and then looked at Toshiro. So are you and Karen together? We're dating at the moment. Karen said as she grabbed Toshiro's arm. I know we look really different, but that's because all of a sudden Toshi went and grew about 8 feet. It was 3 feet. And what's wrong with me actually growing? It's a natural part of life just like in the human world. I don't see why you and Matsumoto are so angry about it all. I'm angry because now we look odd together. You look all grown and I look like a kid. It's a bit pedophilic. Well, I was about 100 years older than you already. Didn't you have a crush on that bun-haired chick? Ichigo asked. Karen glared at her brother as Toshiro looked away. You mean Momo? She died during the Sternritter invasion. One of them used her as a zombie to attack me and some others, but in the end we couldn't save her. She was already so weak from the attacks during Aizen's rebellion and such. She was just getting back on her feet when the Sternritter came and it all went downhill from there. I'm so sorry. It seems a lot of people have died since I got here, he said with a confused look, not really understanding everything himself. Yeah, it gets a little disheartening after a while. But Toshi helped me when I became a substitute Soul Reaper, and from there we kind of began to like each other. Ichigo smiled when a voice seemed to ring out loudly. Attention all captains and lieutenants of the Soul Society. Attention all captains and lieutenants of the Soul Society. The head captain is calling for an emergency meeting of all captains and lieutenants. This summons also includes past Kurosaki Ichigo to attend. Ichigo looked at the two and Toshiro nodded. Sorry, Karen, I'll come back later. I hope your wound gets better. Captain Zaraki did a good job, so I'm sure it will be fine. She said with a smile. Before Ichigo left, Karen gave him a big hug. Ichigo smiled and hugged her back. I kind of miss this Ichigo. You're a lot more lovable. Hurry back and see me. Ichigo nodded and left with Toshiro to go to the summons. Ichigo had never been to a summons before, and so he felt a little awkward. It was especially awkward because he could see that everyone knew where to go and there were so many people he knew but didn't know at the same time. It got a little disconcerting when he felt someone's hand on his shoulder. You are going to be next to me. Ichigo looked up and blinked. Dad? Never thought I'd see you like this again. Byakuya-san told me all about it. He pushed Ichigo over to his side and then went about arm's length away from him. Ichigo watched the captains and lieutenants pile in even more when he spotted Renji and Rukia walking in together. They walked closer to him and then separated, Renji going in front of him and Rukia beside him. Ichigo, I'm glad you're awake. It's good to see you too, Rukia. Ichigo looked as Yuichiro ran in and tackled him to the ground, straddling him. You left without saying so much as a goodbye. That will cost you a few rounds. Yuichiro, please get off of him. Yuichiro promptly got off of Ichigo only to spider monkey onto Zaraki. Ken-chan. I haven't seen you in ages. You are a disgrace to the Kenpachis before you. Yuichiro pouted. For a second and then got off of Zaraki, the maniacal grin coming back to her face. Me? A disgrace? Take a look at yourself, Zaraki. Zaraki just shook his head. You are still a disgrace to all the Kenpachis before you. Get your life together, Yuichiro. It's Kenpachi. Does this happen often? Ichigo asked his father, not understanding her wishy-washy attitude. Yuichiro is naturally charismatic, but when it comes to being the Kenpachi, her actions are not too convincing at times. But in this case, yes, when those two are in each other's presence they get this way. It's so erratic. Yuichiro was always erratic. We'll just add sadistic to it now. Isshin said with a laugh. You act more like a Kenpachi should than her, but you refuse the title. Rukia said beside him. What do you mean? Yachiru did beat Zaraki in the battle for captain, but you beat her later on. In all technicality, you are the next Kenpachi, but you refused the title and stayed with your own squad. Which is why she fell in love with you. Or so I read in a special edition of the Seriidii communication that featured her article, A Kenpachi in Love. Ichigo blinked a little when he saw Orihime walking in with someone at her side. When Orihime saw him, she waved and the other person turned too. Ichigo's eyes widened at seeing the person. Hello, Kurosaki-san. How did Tatsuki get here? Orihime gave a sad smile. The same way I did, we'll talk later, okay? Nice to see you, Ichigo. Tatsuki said, turning fully to him. When she turned, he saw that there was a horrid claw mark on her face that went from her hairline to her chin. She smiled and stood next to Rinji. Once everyone was in, Kairaku stood up and looked over everyone with a concerned look. Captains and lieutenants of the Godii 13, I have called you here in regards to a serious situation that has come to my attention. It seems that we will soon be at war with a race long thought to be extinct within the Soul Society, the Kakurahita. Everyone gasped except those who were new to Soul Society. I thought that they were wiped out even before the Quincy were involved. Joshiro said, stepping out to look at the head captain. I mean, you and I were part of the teams that were involved in taking them down. I am aware of that, Captain Yukitake, which is why this discovery is so disconcerting. Bring her in, he yelled. The doors opened and someone began to walk in holding a young girl that was flailing miserably in the arms of her captor. Let go of me. Let go of me before I unleash my Prasansaka Laharam on everyone in this room. I'll do it. I can. The man holding her rolled his eyes and walked up the aisle to the head captain. As he walked, he suddenly felt an eerie feeling and looked over at his father. He stopped walking for a moment and then shook his head. He delivered the flailing girl to the front and plopped her down in front of Kairaku. Hey! What's the big idea, you stoic galoot? The man took out a sword and put it to her neck, which made her calm down and she gulped. That's enough now, Captain Kurosaki, you can go to your place, as Captain Kuratsuchi explains this girl. I would, but it seems my place is being occupied by a weird jigai. Kairaku blinked and looked over and then looked back at him. Captain Kurosaki, that's not a jigai. Whatever it is, it looks nothing like me. It looks like something Urahara or my father would cook up just to PSS me off. Though it wasn't funny at all, the first person to ironically laugh was Byakuya, who tried to hide it behind his sleeve. Captain Kurosaki turned to him. Is there something I missed? Byakuya stopped laughing as Ichigo got out of line. Hey! I don't know what you think you're talking about, but I ain't no jigai. I'm a substitute Soul Reaper. Turn around when I talk to you. Captain Kurosaki turned and Ichigo stopped. They both looked at each other, taking in their completely different looks as Captain Kurosaki turned to Byakuya and Ichigo turned to Isshin. That thing looks nothing like me. They both said at the same time. Kairaku blinked at the two Kurosakis as they stared each other down. How do you mean that he looks nothing like you? You're both the same person. This imbecilic, scrawny boy couldn't possibly be me. Captain Kurosaki growled, walking toward Ichigo. I don't ever remember looking so pathetic. I'm only lost because I'm in a world I don't recognize and an ugly punk but like you in my face telling me I'm not who I am. I don't think I could be you because I'd never look that ugly. I think we should focus on the girl instead, Jin said, and the two turned to him. While they were fighting, the girl had gotten up and was about to unleash something before three blades came at her neck, those belonging to Jin, Kairaku, and Nanao. Fine. Tell this imposter to get out of my spot. Captain Kurosaki growled. Ichigo looked at the head captain and he smiled a little. You can hold the prisoner in place as Captain Kuratsuchi explains who this girl is. Ichigo walked up and took out one of his blades. He went behind the girl and made her kneel while he placed the point of the blade at her neck and the other blades went back to their respective hilts. Please, Captain Kuratsuchi, elaborate. Very well. Mayuri said, walking up the line of Soul Reapers. Ichigo had to compose himself because as usual, the Squad 12 captain's headdress was anything but usual and this year's fashion seemed to include him looking like a clown with a pointed hat with a ball at the end. The Kakurahita are the same as Soul Reapers but with major difference, they do not have Zanpakutos. Then what makes them a threat to us, someone asked. Because unlike us, they have the power of Zanpakutos but they call it something quite different. What was it called again? Something silly. Silly. The only thing that's silly around here is you and that god-awful hat. We are more than you could ever handle, you scum, she growled, spitting on the floor. Mayuri glared at her and he looked at Kairaku. Permission to ask Ichigo to reprimand the prisoner. Kairaku nodded and Mayuri looked at Ichigo. Go ahead. Show her what happens when she gets cocky with Soul Reapers. Huh. I'm not speaking Chinese. I said show the girl how we handle threats to the Soul Society. Ichigo had never really had to do any of this before, still being the good-hearted, every cloud has a silver lining, not all people are bad type of guy. Captain Kurosaki was not. He pulled out one of his Zanpakutos and pushed Ichigo out of the way, slicing the girl on the arm just enough to draw blood. Wait a minute, that's what you wanted me to do? Draw blood? When someone tells you to make the prisoner understand their position, you do it. Captain Kurosaki growled, glaring at him with the eye that was not covered by his eye patch. Ichigo glared back at him but understood that he did not belong up there and moved back to his father. If that is me I look ridiculous as a pirate anyhow. Now, what's your name? My name is Osaka Hijimane. What just like us, the Kakurahita have Shirkai and Bankai but it's a little different. What do you call that silly thing again? Osaka was going to buck against the question again but she looked over her shoulder at the tall orange-haired man and gulped at his unhesitant hand. They are called Rihais. Mayuri nodded. Ah, yes Rihai. Such a stupid name. Captain Kurosaki and I discovered that most if not all Kakurahitas use the hand signs of the 12 animals of the zodiac to indicate when they are about to strike. How do you know it was that and not something else? Someone asked. Mayuri turned swiftly, looking around wildly. Who dares to question my abilities to scout out a situation? No one said anything. I had Nimue there to record everything, of course. When we got back to the Soul Society, I did some extensive research into the Godii 13 records while I waited for the head captain to summon everyone. I came across documents referring to the first person to ever use this so-called Rihai, and his name was Roka Sasagawa. Kairaku closed his eyes and Nanao leaned over to him. Sir, do you know this man? Yes but. Roka is not a man. Nanao blinked a little as Kairaku stood up, walking around Captain Kurosaki to look at Osaka. Hijimane-san, would you be so kind as to tell us why the Kakurahita thought it would be good to take up residence in Hueco Mundo? Will I get set free if I tell you? No, I'm afraid we will have to keep you locked up. Then I won't tell you. That's fair enough. We will have the guards take you to the cells. He turned around to everyone else. These people are very dangerous. Captain Yukitake and I have dealt with the Kakurahita before. I understand that they don't have a Zanpakuto but you never explained exactly why that's problematic. Toshiro said, stepping out of line to look up the rows. So far, all we have gotten is that they don't have Zanpakutos but have the powers of them. How much of a threat is that? I can explain about that. Yukitake said, stepping out of line as Toshiro went back in. A long time ago, there was a study done by Squad 12 in regards to the Zanpakutos. Did we actually need receptacles in order to use them? Since their development comes from within us with meditation and training, what use was a physical weapon? We found out that you did not have to have a sword but the cost and energy of doing so was detrimental to not only the Soul Reaper, but the Soul Society. In the study, We found out that the Asachi given to us when we begin our lives as Soul Reapers help us to develop and control our own powers. The sword, in a sense, is a filter of power only being used when activated, and since it eventually becomes sentient, it knows itself sometimes better than we do and thus protects us if our power is greater than our own good. If we do not use the swords as receptacles for our Zanpakutos to develop, our bodies give us the power we already have, but trying to maintain it is taxing. In order to keep our own powers from going haywire, one would have to consistently put mind, body, and soul through tortuous and rigorous amounts of training. Even then, if one were to lose concentration on their powers for a second, the full force of it could be exposed and, depending on the person, could destroy all of the soul society. We tried to persuade Rukia of how dangerous it was, but she thought that if we used a lot of determination, we wouldn't be bound by the swords and the incarnations within them. We'd be able to harvest all of our powers without having to fight for them if our Zanpakuto incarnations thought we were unworthy. She believed that the incarnations were a hindrance to Soul Reapers. So, since she was the captain at the time, she secretly continued the experiment. Soon, she had followers and the threat of destroying the Soul Society was at hand. And so we drove them out of the Soul Society. Kairaku finished. So what are we supposed to do then? Ichigo said, stepping out of line. Give them an Asachi and demand them to say, hi, to their Zanpakuto. That seems to be the only solution I see. This is why you are not the head captain. Captain Kurosaki growled. Neither are you. I see now it's because of you. Ichigo's. Isshin said, looking between the two. Discuss this later. Our task is to find out what the plan of the Kakurahita is before they make their way into the Soul Society. Rukia may be crazy enough to even send people to deliberately misuse their power to destroy us. You think you Soul Reapers are so smart? Osaka said, looking at all of them. You think you're so clever with your stupid little magical swords? Rukia-sama has been developing her powers for centuries and your stupid Zanpakutos won't stand a chance against her raw power. You drove my people out and left us to die. Not only that, then you began to hunt us down like animals. We weren't harming anyone. That may be so, but as with the Quincy's, the pure power of the Zanpakuto ruins the balance between the worlds. Raw power doesn't purify, it kills. Kairaku said with a menacing glare. Take her below. I'm sure Aizen will be glad to have a roommate. Guards came in and took the girl away. The rest of the squads are to begin tomorrow morning searching for the hideout of the Kakurahita. Dismissed. Everyone left and went to their barracks. I'm glad that you made it back safe, Ichigo-sama. Karen said, as she began to walk with the captains. Captain Kurosaki turned to her and lifted his eyebrow. Ichigo-sama. Well, I can't just call you both Ichi and I, you'll get confused. You're the older version, so. He growled and turned away from her. Oichi. Captain Kurosaki turned around swiftly as Yachiru came down on him full force with her sword. She came down on his swords hard, but he stood his ground and reflected her off, running toward her. It didn't take long for him to flip her sword from her hands and pin her to the ground, his two swords stabbed through her haori. You win again. Captain Kurosaki then proceeded to kiss her passionately on the ground and Toshiro looked away, rolling his eyes. Renji made a face. It's like this every time. It's no different from when we do it. Rukia said with a smirk. Yes it is. At least when we kiss, it's just a kiss, not a battle to the death every time we want affection. Rukia just chuckled and Captain Kurosaki got off the ground, pulling Yachiru up with him. I don't know anymore. Yachiru suddenly said. You don't know what? I don't know if I like Ichi or Oichi the best. What do you mean? Captain Kurosaki said with a glare. You're both very fine kissers. Captain Kurosaki turned swiftly to Ichigo. You kissed my wife. In all technicality she's my wife too. Captain Kurosaki seemed to develop a fire in his eyes as he pulled out his sword. Getsuga dash. Ni-sama. Karen yelled, grabbing him around the waist. What are you doing? This Jigai is getting on my goddamn nerves. Ichigo, confused as to what in the world could have happened to make himself be that way, watched as pretty much everyone tried to calm his older self down. Tea. Ichigo looked up as Rukia handed him a cup and he took it, smelling the soothing smells of the tea leaves. You alright? She asked. I just, really can't believe that that's going to be me in a couple, 100 years or so. Yeah. Is there a reason why I'm like that? I mean, I've never been that way. Rukia nodded, sitting beside him on the steps. True, but you haven't gone through what he's gone through. You may be the same person but you're two separate people. I take Nisama as an example. You would know, but I heard he used to be hot-headed and loud, kind of like you. Ichigo frowned as Rukia smiled. But all I knew was his stoic demeanor and sometimes unforgiving accordance to the law. When I found out it was because his wife died, I understood him a little better. When he married Nanao, though, he has slowly started to change. People become who they are through experiences they've had in life. That shapes them. Very true. Do you know what shaped me? I can't say for sure. You may be the same Ichigo but you are from a different timeline. What I tell you may have no bearing. I don't care. I just don't want to end up like him. Then you'll need a little more background history than Rukia can give you. Renji said as he came in from the kitchen. There's more to the story than what your older self has told her. I know this sounds odd but you'll have to ask yourself what happened. I don't even like me. Like I said, you're not from this timeline. He is probably more surprised at you than you are at him. Rukia said. I think that if you just ask him, the younger Ichigo we all grew to love will at least permit you a small explanation. I highly doubt that. I can see why Zaraki approved of me and Yachiro's marriage. You. Jigai. A deep voice growled. Ichigo looked behind him but didn't see the owner of the voice. Over here you idiotic thing. Ichigo looked at the fence that surrounded Rukia and Renji's barack. I was advised to have a word with you. I'll tell you everything you need to know, if you can keep up. Captain Kurosaki suddenly did Sonido and Ichigo go up, running toward the gate. Rukia sighed. He really never changes, no matter who timeline he's in. Yeah. Still an idiot who can't back away from a challenge, even if it's posed by himself. The two laughed at the irony of the situation and then began to strategize about the next day. You're a very slow version of me. Are you sure you're not a Jigai? Ichigo growled as Captain Kurosaki switched between using Sonido and Flash Step to maneuver around the Soul Society in the game of tag that was occurring. To his own dismay, Ichigo had to admit that his older version was definitely more advanced than he was. Probably because he's lived here for so long and has had a lot of experience. Hey, what are you dreaming about? A deep voice growled in his ear. Ichigo yelped and jumped back quickly on the air, staring at his older self. Captain Kurosaki scoffed and crossed his arms. You are one pathetic being. You need to go back to Urahara so he can give you better enhancements. Either that or you need to get your act together, Kon. Ichigo blanched, staring at his older self. Are you going to cry? The captain asked. Ichigo grabbed his swords and held them up. Getsuga Tensho. The Ryatsu shot out from Zangetsu but Captain Kurosaki easily dodged it and glared at Ichigo. I see. Who the hell do you think you are? My name is Ichigo Kurosaki, substitute Soul Reaper made so by Rukia. I've been through a lot in the last 12 years that I'm not really happy about. I've been sent through time and space to the past and now I'm not only in the future, but in a different dimension altogether. My world could be dying and here I am, talking to an a-hole like you. 12 years? You don't look a day over 17. The older Soul Reaper mocked, giving Ichigo a barely noticeable smile. I count the past as years of my life too, you know. Or does that not matter to you anymore? Captain Kurosaki stared at him for a moment. Most of my past is gone, so I do not dwell on it. You have not caught me, Jigai. Tell Urahara to fix your abilities. I am you. Ichigo yelled. You are not good enough to ever be me. Captain Kurosaki went away and Ichigo went to the ground. He didn't understand why his own self was denying him. It was an oddly agonizing experience, to be denied by one's own self. He sent a wave of Ryatsu into a tree, knocking it down. Nye, still have a temper I see. A voice said from behind a tree. Jin, I'm not in the mood. Ichigo growled. The sneaky captain slid from behind the tree and smiled his usual smirk. Is it really that important? You don't even belong to this world. Besides, that Ichigo isn't the most friendly anyway. Why would you want to be like him? I'm not trying to be like him. It doesn't matter. It wouldn't matter to you anyway. You're right. I just came here for Byakuya's sake. He is with his family at the moment but he is worried about you. So he sent a snake to spy me out. Jin's smirk widened. I had nothing to do. Ichigo scoffed as the two headed back toward the barracks. What did you have to do to get back as a captain? Nothing shady, if that's what you mean. Jin said, frowning. But you were with Aizen's coup to overthrow the Soul Society. I thought I explained this when you got your powers back. You explained how you came back to life, not how you got to be a captain again. My squad has been without a captain since I abandoned it the first time, and when Kira died, there was still a need for someone else. I've been very good, and when no one came up to the plate, I kindly asked if I could have my old squad back. Ichigo made a face but they ended up in a comfortable silence. I never did thank you, Kurosaki-san. Ichigo looked at him as he just joyfully looked up at the sky. What do you mean? When you warned me about Aizen-sama. Your clue helped. And yet you still went with him. I told you that I had to get revenge on Ranjaku. But, I knew that I would die, which made things just a little easier to do. How could that make things easier? Because your clue about him being powerful led me to understand when I should strike and that he would know about my plans already. When he told me how to stop his Zanpakuto from affecting me, I realized that that was when he knew about my plans. It was fun, going along and acting like I was with him. The thrill was, not worth dying for, but it was interesting. Ichigo smiled a little, though confused. Just like you said it would be, huh? Jin's smirk widened. Indeed. They stopped in front of a barack and Jin turned his head. This is my barack, would you like to come in? There's gallons of sake from when Ranjaku wasn't PRGNNT and I'm not a sake drinker myself. Care to have some? Your parenting skills are lacking already and the baby hasn't been born. Ichigo said with a face. Jin laughed. Maybe you can get drunk and make your stuck-up older self tell you whatever frivolity bothers you. Ichigo thought about it for a moment when Matsumoto walked out onto the porch, arching her back, her baby bump clearly showing now. Oh, you found Ichi. She said with a smile. Sorry you had to see me acting crazy in the infirmary. Toshiro he just grew up so fast. Now, don't go into that again. Ichigo shrugged. What's a little drink? Huh, Ani is here. Chinea yelled, running from the back room toward the front door. Nanao walked behind him slowly as a maid opened the front door, revealing Captain Kurosaki. Ani. Ani. Chinea giggled, bouncing in front of the captain. He bent down and picked the boy up as Chinea immediately began to touch his bare arms, looking for scars. What's this one, Ani? And this one? And this one? Chin-kun, enough. Nanao said, grabbing the boy from the captain. I'm sorry, Ichigo, I don't know what his fascination with scars is about. You shouldn't let the head captain babysit him. Nanao laughed. True. What brings you here? I thought I would have a small talk with Byakuya. I didn't see him at the barracks. Nanao frowned. You didn't. Did you check with Rukia? Yes, she thought he might be with you. Nanao panicked a little but, like her husband, was able to hide it very well as she adjusted her glasses. I'm sure he's fine. I know that he likes to go to that clearing that he met his Anna at to practice with his hollow powers. Captain Kurosaki turned his head. Doesn't it bother you that he goes there? Nanao shrugged. I've seen the clearing and it's a good place to practice with the hollow powers and out of the way. The fact that he met his first wife there is ironic, but she's dead and can't come back. The captain nodded and turned around to leave. Ani. I want to come. Chinea yelled out. Chin-kun, he has lots of things to do. The captain turned back and held out his hands to the little boy. He grinned as he put the boy on his shoulders and Chinea squealed in delight. Mind the door frames. Nanao yelled, knowing that the captain's height was already a problem. Oh, Ni-san. Karen yelled out. Captain Kurosaki turned and Karen smiled up at Chinea. Hello, Chin-kun, she yelled. Kan-e, he said, waving. You're tiny like me from up here. Karen made a face as the child giggled. What is it, Karen? Oh, Toshiro wanted me to tell you that your younger self is drunk and is at Squad 3 barracks. Toshi had gone to get Matsumoto and apparently, Jin has been giving him sake for a solid hour or so. Captain Kurosaki rolled his eyes and turned to go to Squad 3's barack. Is Jin an idiot? I think he was just trying to help. Matsumoto wouldn't have helped any, she would have just challenged him and we all know how you are about challenges. She said with a laugh. Don't compare me to that idiot. You truly think that that disappointment is me from the past? Why not? He looks and acts just like you used to. I don't see why you're making it hard on yourself. Captain Kurosaki made a face at her as she grinned. That wasn't intentional. Because he is from a different dimension. He should learn his own future when it happens. I didn't have a future me to tell me about what was going to happen, so why should he? Well. He can prevent some things from happening. Like Orihime and Tatsuki. Captain Kurosaki stopped walking and Karen looked over her shoulder. Do you think that that would happen in his dimension? It seems more likely than not. She said with a sad look. The captain sighed as they continued to Squad 3 barracks. And another thing. What's with that goofy-looking eye patch I'm wearing? Am I a pirate? It looks like I'm trying to look like that stupid Kenpachi, he laughed obnoxiously. Captain Kurosaki stood at the porch and watched his younger self laying on the floor, looking up at the ceiling yelling at no one. Toshiro looked up at the captain and reached for Chinea. Snowman, he squeaked. Well, we finally know what you look like when you get drunk. He said. I still think he's a jigai. He stepped up and bent down to get in the door of the barack. Hey, get the hell up. Ichigo looked up and then frowned, getting up quickly making a karate stance. I'll fight ya. I know moves. Captain Kurosaki sighed and swiftly punched his younger self in the face. He promptly collapsed to the floor and the captain picked the boy up. When Kurosaki got to Squad 9, he put Ichigo on the porch and filled a bucket up full of water. Yachiru walked out from the back and silently watched Kurosaki walk over to Ichigo and pour cold water over him. Ichigo sputtered and coughed, looking up. What the hell, man? Are you sober now? An hour's worth of drinking should pass through your system quickly. I'm coherent. Ichigo said, a headache developing. Good. Because I'm going to explain some things to you that you need to understand. Got it? You're going to tell me why you're a D-dash. Yachiru laughed and the two turned. It's funny how you're arguing with yourself. Both of them made a same face and sent Yachiru into laughs. Kurosaki rolled his eye and then looked back down. Are you going to stand there or come on? Ichigo got up and followed Kurosaki out. Nest of maggots. How is she? She seems to have broken through, but she is very tired. Are you sure you want to see her? I put her down here. If what you say is true, then I want to see her. Urahara nodded as he turned to the guard and handed Beneheim to him. Byakuya hesitantly gave up Senbonzakura to the guard, and they turned as the guard unlocked the door. They traveled through the main hallway of the cave-like dwelling when an inmate stood up. So, you came back after all this time. Where have you been, Urahara? Oh, here and there. I'm going to pound you. Byakuya turned swiftly and apprehended the inmate without much effort. Urahara smiled. Thank you, Kochiki-sama. They made their way to another door that was at the other end of the room. Once inside, Urahara grabbed the torch on the wall and walked down a dark hallway. They finally got to the end of the hallway and Urahara handed the torch to Byakuya. She can hear you, but whether she can communicate is not known. Can I go in? No. She's still very unstable. Byakuya went up to the bars of the small cell and raised up the torch to see inside. On the wall a body was hanging limply from chains, their head lolled down. Koana? Can you hear me? The face lifted, a hollow mask on the face. It turned to the side for a second, listening. Koana? The mask suddenly cracked and burst, a young woman's face looking at him except that one of her eyes was inversed, black sclera and yellow pupil. Chi-Chi. Ichigo walked next to Kurosaki for a few moments in silence, unbeknownst to him that Kurosaki was actually being kind to him and letting the small hangover pass from him. He was also trying to figure out how to not scare the boy with the past that he had tried to forget for so long. Are you sober now? Yeah, I'm okay, I think. Good, because there are a lot of things you need to understand and I won't repeat them. Ichigo nodded and Kurosaki closed his eye. Everything ties in together, the eye patch, Orihime and Tatsuki, some other things, and I now believe that this may even have to do with the Kakurahita. He breathed in and crossed his arms. I can't remember how long ago it was, but long enough that Orihime and Tatsuki looked just a little older than when you last saw them. It all started with a strange occurrence with some of the Vizards. At some point we began getting calls that some of the Vizards were causing trouble in the world of the living, doing hollow-like things and then forgetting what had been done. Urahara and Tachuri were helping to investigate since they are located there along with Hirako since he is the unnamed leader of the Vizards. Urahara reported to us that one day when he was doing some on-site testing, Lisa suddenly bent over with a pain in her stomach and then in her head. Suddenly, the hollow part began to explode from the inside like pudding, wrapping around her body, and she began to go insane. She around doing unsavory things just like a hollow with no sense would do. The head captain, against his own wishes, needed to see what was going on, and so he had Urahara and Tachuri just watch her instead of help her. What they found out was that she was being controlled by someone who can control hollows. Control hollows? Yes. I now have a sneaking suspicion that Saskichi Murasunta was actually part of the Kakurahita. She didn't use a Zanpakuto, using her fingers like marionettes to maneuver people. We didn't discover her until some time later, but she had a way of detecting hollows and controlling them to a degree. We found that the more exposed they were, the less control she had. How do you mean? Kuratsuchi noticed that the regular hollows had more control over themselves because they have less of themselves. They are there to get souls and keep alive from soul reapers. They usually don't have a lot of thoughts unless they are advanced. Vizards, on the other hand, contentiously try to keep their hollows under control, the threat continuously there. The more thought put into keeping it controlled, the easier it was for her to control it. For us, our hollow is our Zanpakuto, so there was no threat anymore. At least for us. He closed his eyes and leaned on the wall as Ichigo watched him carefully, seeing that things were hard to explain. Because I would not be affected by Saskichi, I was sent to search for her and help Urahara and Yoruchi. Byakuya was sent with me. Along with his daughter, Koana. Wait, his daughter? Yes. Byakuya and Nanao had a daughter named Koana who was about 24 at the time. What the head captain wasn't aware of was that in all technicality, Byakuya is a visored. A not too experienced one at that. Just because he says he is doesn't mean he really is. You know his pride. Ichigo chuckled. Truly though, Byakuya is probably the least experienced one with the hollow inside than any of us. And boy did Sasuke know it. It was so unexpected when it happened. It was like when Byakuya came on the scene, Sasuke knew exactly who the easiest target was and she stopped attacking all the other visors, only going after Byakuya. She played with him for a little bit, making him think that he had control over his hollow when all she was doing was controlling him. She would play with the hollow inside him, making it act up just like our hollow did and then allow him to take back control. When we least expected it, she hit him full force. 1 minute he was fine and the next he was going out of control. I've never seen someone descend so fast or so violently. When I tried to stop him, that's where this lovely eye patch comes into play. Kurosaki reached up and removed the eye patch. A sudden descent of power seemed to come over the area, the tops of the walls of the squads chipping from the power and a couple of lesser soul reapers actually fell to the ground in surprise. Ichigo looked at his older self, actually in awe, but the disfigurement of his eye was very gruesome. There were deep scratches near the eye and they got shallower as the scar went along his face, his eye clouded in blindness. As you felt, I do have an immense spiritual pressure as well, more than Zaraki could imagine. It's the same type of patch though, Kuratsuchi made it for me. He said, turning it over for Ichigo to see the mouths attached to them. He turned it around and tied it back. It was after this incident that I needed the extra help anyway. Byakuya had scratched me deeply and ran away. After Urahara helped me with the wound, I thought it best to go to Oriheim's to not only warn her about Byakuya but get my eye fixed. When we got there, there was blood everywhere. Tatsuki was dead but her soul was shaking in the corner. I asked her what happened and she told me that Byakuya had come in and suddenly started swinging Senbonzakura around wildly. Oriheim had tried to get him under control but he turned into his hollow form and began to swing. He killed Tatsuki and took Oriheim with him. I performed Kanso on Tatsuki and went to look for Oriheim, Koana in tow. We finally located Byakuya with Oriheim somewhere near the river where mother died. He had Oriheim in one arm, Senbonzakura up to her neck with the other. His hollow mask was on but his hands were shaking, one of the few times I'd ever seen him scared. Koana called to him and we tried to go toward him but he threatened Oriheim with the sword each time. The last sense of self he had was forcing his sword away from Oriheim's neck and pointing it at us. All he said was, "Forgive me," and the hollow took over, killing Oriheim right in front of us. Koana and Oriheim watched as I fought Byakuya. Kurosaki closed his eyes tightly as he seemed to hold his hand up to his side. I had no idea how difficult it was to fight someone like me. Byakuya was always a very difficult opponent but having him have hollow powers like me was hard to work with. If you remember, the only way we beat him at all was with our own hollow powers. Ichigo nodded, remembering. So think how much stronger he was. I knew it wasn't him that was doing the fighting but he was going at me with no mercy. I didn't want to kill him but I knew that if I didn't get a hold of myself that I would have to. Using the blunt tactics only worked so long, for it's hard to think about that when you're in battle. Wanting to help, Koana thought that it would be good if she entered the fight. Byakuya was pretty far gone, mostly hollow and less human, and I warned Koana that it was dangerous to do anything. It was hard enough to not kill Byakuya as is without Koana in the way. I told her to leave and take care of Oriheim, whose chain was quickly beginning to shorten from it being cut from her body. Byakuya's childhood stubbornness was definitely a family trait and in the middle of the fight, Koana stepped in front of her father. Kurosaki pinched the bridge of his nose. I don't know what that girl thought she was doing but she held out her arms just like Oriheim did when her brother was turned into a hollow and stared at her father. Chi-Chi, I know that you can hear me. It's me, Koana. Come back to us. She yelled. I tried to get her to move out of the way but she could see that Byakuya was fighting himself, seeming to try and pull off the mask that was over his face. It was all a ruse, that Dmed Saskichi was using that to trick us again. She made Byakuya use Zero and it hit Koana in the chest. She flew past me and against a wall. I could barely see Orihime trying to go to her and help her out, but her chain was beginning to be eaten, causing her so much pain. It was a blur from there, so many things were happening, but in the end Byakuya and I ended up locked with our swords together at one point. Byakuya took the higher edge and whipped my sword around, stabbing me through with Senbonzakura. The last thing that I heard was, "I'm sorry, Ani. I'm sorry, Chi-Chi," and a blade was moved through me from behind and then into Byakuya. It seemed that Koana had to use me in order to sneak up on her father, and since I was already run through. The only thing I can think of is that she did Konso on Orihime since she's here and all, but I have no idea what happened to her. We went to look for the body but it was nowhere to be found. Ichigo was silent for a while as Kurosaki looked at the ground. So, Byakuya killed Tatsuki and Orihime? Yes. Does he know about this? Unfortunately. He seems to have taken it rather well, then. No. He is just easy at hiding the pain. You should know that, Ichigo. Ichigo smiled a little and sighed, looking up at himself. And Saskichi? She is still at large. We had her captured for a little bit but she was too smart even for Kuratsuchi and escaped back to wherever she was from. The more I think about her, the more I see how she would fit in with the Kakurohita. I must present this to the head captain anyway to make sure she doesn't appear again, and if she does, what to do about Byakuya and the other Vizards. What do I need to do? Can I help? Sorry, but it's my job to protect the Soul Society, not yours. We're the same person. No, we aren't. I'm sure there are other people that would like to see you again. This is not a concern of yours. Kurosaki used Sonido and left, leaving Ichigo by himself. Somewhere underground. Are you sure? This is where they have him? Positive. The door opened and the two stared at the lone man in the chair. Well, I haven't seen your face in a while. The man said with a grin. Yes, it has been a long time, hasn't it? What brings you here to visit? You chose the path of the Soul Reaper, limiting yourself with that silly sword of yours, and then tried to gain immense power. I find that a bit of a step backwards on your part, for someone so intelligent as yourself. You flatter me. You want to attain real power? I can show you how without having to go through silly swords, silly transformations, or silly rules. How would you like to have your powers available at any time? No blade required. What would you say to that, Aizen? Aizen smiled from his restraints. Real power, you say? The highest ever dreamed. Aizen just smiled a little more. Your offer seems better than most. Who's to say I won't rule over you one day, Roka? The red-headed woman turned to look back at Aizen, her glasses shining in the light. Fat chance, but you're on the right track. Untie him. Byakuya opened his door and Nanao came from the back, crossing her arms as he looked up. Nanao. And where have you been? You nearly gave me a heart attack. What do you mean? Kurosaki, the older one, was looking for you. He said that Rukia told him that you might be here, but I thought you had gone to your barracks. You can't just do that, Byakuya. You mean go about my own business, he said with a frown. Not tell me where you are. Byakuya made a face and walked up to her, touching her cheek softly. Why are you acting this way, Nanao? It's just, there's been rumor from Captain Kuratsuchi as well as Urahara-san that Saskichi woman might have been part of the Kakurohita. After what happened to Koana. I just don't want you to get caught again. Byakuya frowned deeply and shunpaed backwards away from Nanao. Byakuya. Urahara has been with me the whole time I was gone, and only few people know Murasanta's first name because she only tells it to the people she either intends to kill or control. I remember specifically not telling Nanao because I didn't want her to worry. So, he drew Senbenzakura and pointed the sword at his wife. Who are you? Nanao blinked, but an evil grin crossed her face as the scenery around her faded away, revealing the real Nanao on the floor unconscious. Your attention to detail hasn't changed at all, Kachiki-sama. The last thing to change was Nanao in general as she shattered and Aizen walked toward Byakuya through the image shards. Byakuya looked around Aizen to see if he could find his Zanpakuto but didn't see it. If you're trying to find my Zanpakuto, it's not here. I have transcended past physical vessels. I can now use Kanzen Simon with just the flick of my finger and sheer willpower. That can't be. You lost your Zanpakuto when the Hogyoku disintegrated it. I'm glad you were paying attention. He said with a frown. Also, when Kasuke Urahara used the Kujaraki Kakafumetsu Kido on you, you lost all of your powers. You should have nothing left. My, is this the little boy you so desperately wanted to pick on? A female voice said, the voice surrounding the room. I thought for sure you'd want to go after Kurosaki first. I have found that the easiest way to get to Ichigo Kurosaki is to mess with his friends first. It makes him humorously angry, like a kitten and can't catch a dangling string. Aizen said with a nostalgic smile. A woman suddenly appeared, wearing a golden halter top and golden harem pants with bright slip-on shoes that curled at the end. She had her long red hair in a braid on her shoulder. Hello, Kuchiki-sama. Murasanta tells me that you are quite the catch. I have come to gather you up for my army. My name is Roka Sasagawa, I used to be a soul reaper just like you. Byakuya lifted an eyebrow. I have not heard of you or seen your name in the records. Well, of course not. She said with a small frown. Why would the creator of the Rihai be in the books of the Soul Society? My puppet, someone yelled and Byakuya looked up. Another woman appeared, much taller than this Roka and had the same type of outfit on except she had two-tone hair of purple and pink with each side having a large strand of hair held by a round clasp. Byakuya took a step back from her as she turned, her same-colored eyes locking onto Byakuya. I'm so glad I found you. Now we can play some more. Be gentle, Murasanta. Roka said, pushing her glasses up. Saskichi waved her boss away. I'm always careful. Don't worry, Byakuya-san, we'll just start where we left off. Retrieve, Antarika Nyantrana. Kurosaki walked into his barracks as Ichigo came out. Did you have a talk with yourself? Yes. Did you accomplish what you wanted to accomplish? No. Now the little RETD wants to help. Is that really a surprise? She said, kneeling next to him. He is you, younger or not, and you have always been keen on helping people and putting your nose in things you don't belong in. I know that, but this isn't something he needs to be involved in. But he is you, so he is involved just as much as you are. If he were talking to you, do you really think you'd be taking it lightly? Kurosaki made a face and Ichigo poked his cheek. You're stubborn no matter what time PRD or universe you're from. Kurosaki-kun. Kurosaki looked over as Orihime ran up, Tatsuki and Hanataro behind her. What is it? It's Nanao-san. She's hurt very badly. Karen went to take Chinea back and found her lying on the floor in a puddle of blood. Kurosaki got up quickly and they all traveled to squad. When they got there, Chinea was in tears in the corner as others listened to Zaraki's direction and were running around to get things for Nanao. Kurosaki walked over to Chinea and picked him up, holding him as he cried. Ha! I want Ha! Your mother's hurt right now. Be brave. He turned to Zaraki. Can you determine what happened? All I can see is that it was a stab wound, but she's bleeding pretty badly. The child needs to be taken elsewhere. Kurosaki-san, I'll take him to Matsumoto-san's barrack so that he will be safe. Orihime said, holding out her hands. Kurosaki nodded and handed the young boy to Orihime, who coddled him lovingly and ran away from the chaos. As she ran into Ichigo. Oh, Ichi. What's going on? Someone came to get me. Nanao-chan has been stabbed. I'm taking Chinoya to Matsumoto in the meantime. Stabbed? Has anyone found Byakuya and told him? Not yet. I'm sure Kurosaki would be happy if you went to get him. Ichigo nodded and began to look for Byakuya. Byakuya. Byakuya, where are you? Byakuya WAH. Something slammed into him and then dragged him down to the ground. He fought with the hands of the person until they pinched his NPL and he yelped. What was that for? Keep your voice down, damn it, a young girl hissed. Just as Ichigo was about to say something, voices echoed around them and he opted for silence. Yeah, I released that girl but it looks like Murasanta got herself a better puppet. I went to activate the girl but she was too quick and escaped. Roka won't be pleased. I know but she left us to get to that creepy overzealous Soul Reaper, the one with the orange hair. Oh yeah, what was his name? Itsugo? Yichiji? Something about fruit. Oh yeah. Ichigo. Yeah, we should get a move on with that weirdo. With the combination of me and Murasanta, we'll have that guy on his knees begging to be killed. Which is where you come in. Ah, I do love my job. The two left and Ichigo blinked, wondering how in the world he was going to get to his older self. Don't even think about it, the girl said and he looked over. She was no older than Karen and had long black hair that was disheveled and it looked like she hadn't had a change of clothing for a very long time. Half of her face was covered with her hair as she looked at him. I know you're not Ani but I figured you were as good as any. Wait, what? How do you know who I am? My father came to see me and told me of all that I've missed. Your father? Byakuya Kuchiki. You must be the younger version of Ani, considering everything. She said, looking at him up and down. Dunno if you're worth the time. You know, I'm getting a little tired of people taking me for granted. I grow up to be that guy, okay, he said, standing up and stretching. Besides, aren't you supposed to be dead? The girl looked up and her hair moved, revealing the side of her face that was covered. Half of her mask was there, her eye black with a yellow pupil. I would rather be dead than endure this endless battle. Just so you know, Aizen ZPT is back for a reason. It will be explained and here we finally have a start to this invasion. The humanity. Ichigo looked at her for a moment as she put her hair back in place over the mask. How can you just have half of a mask? I mean, it's happened to me before but usually in the middle of me taking control of my body. Why is yours just, there? Because it's half developed. How are you so calm about this? The girl smiled a little. I've been stuck in limbo for a very long time, battling my inner hollow. We've come to know each other very well. What's your name? Koana. Okay, Koana, what's the big deal then pulling me down like that? Who were those guys and why are they trying to kill the older version of me? From what I got from them was that a woman named Roka was going to try and take over the Soul Society by releasing everyone from their Zanpakutos, Soul Reapers, and Visored alike, with Murasanta's help. Murasanta, isn't she the one that? Koana nodded sadly. Yeah. She's the one that got a hold of father and made him hurt your friends. I hope they haven't gotten a hold of him again, but if they get a hold of you. What do you mean? Roka's ability is to destroy the Zanpakuto that filters the Shirkai and Bankai that everyone uses. If she releases yours. Not just older me. Zaraki and a couple other people would bring this place to the ground. That may be true but only you have all 4 sectors of our world. You are a Soul Reaper, a human, a Quincy, and a Hollow. Now all you need is to have all of those powers released by turning into a Kakurahita. They don't need to unleash anyone else but you, Ani. Ichigo realized that what she said was right and he stood up. I have to go find me before those people get a hold of him. I'm coming with you. Are you sure? I mean, your family thinks that you're dead and you have half of a hollow mask on your face. I don't think the head captain will mind right now. Koana said with a frown. Besides, I have a feeling that Murasanta has my father already. Oh, that reminds me, I was trying to find Byakuya because I was told that Nanao was stabbed. Stabbed? Why didn't you say something earlier? I was getting there. Come on then, she yelled, grabbing his arm as she jumped into the sky, using footholds. Nanao opened her eyes but everything was blurry. She felt something be stuck on her face and was met with Kairaku looking at her thoughtfully. Head captain. She said softly. How are you feeling? Like I was hit with a brick or 20. He smiled at her as she suddenly looked around. Where's Chinea? I heard him crying but. Orihime took him to be with Matsumoto for the time being. He was in a fright and everyone here was trying to help you. She thought getting him away would do better for him than if he watched you. Nanao sighed as Zaraki walked in, holding a small vial and needle. Good to see you up, Nanao. Zaraki-san. Can you tell us what happened? He asked as he pulled the plunger on the syringe. It was the strangest thing. I heard the door open to the house and looked to see that it was Byakuya. I asked him where he had been and he said that he had been about. Usually he's very specific about where he has been and so I asked exactly where. He looked at me strange and then gave me a smile I had never seen on him before. I mean, I know Byakuya doesn't smile often but when he does, it's usually very ghost-like, almost unseen. This smile, though, was full of deceit and malice. Like a sick joke. I knew instantly that it wasn't Byakuya. So I confronted him about it and then he melted away. Like he had been a costume someone was wearing and I felt a blade pierce through me from the back. I turned and, you won't believe this, but I saw Aizen looking at me. He smiled and whispered, how does it feel to be stabbed by your own blade, and then everything went black. Aizen? Kairaku said in shock. They released Aizen. Then, if that wasn't Byakuya. Didn't Aizen have an illusion Zanpakuto? Something about the 5 senses? Captain Kurosaki said. I never really got to understand it because I had never seen it but when I was going to Karakura town from Hueco Mundo during that time, Captain Unohana had warned me about it and since I was the only one who hadn't seen his Zanpakuto, that was why I was the best to defeat him. It's true that Aizen's Zanpakuto was one of the more powerful illusion Zanpakutos we've ever seen but Urahara's Kido seal negates that power and so he shouldn't be able to do anything with it. Kairaku said. It's not just illusions. It's hypnotic. Nanao said from the bed as Zaraki gave her a shot. Trying to beat around the word won't stop it from having the definition, sir. Aizen's Zanpakuto was a hypnotic Zanpakuto. Kairaku sighed, knowing that but not wanting to full out say it. So you are, but are you saying that he was using it then? Sir, he wasn't using anything. He didn't have a Zanpakuto on him. I think he's a Kakurahita now. Captain Kurosaki looked over at Kairaku and then out the window when he thought he saw orange hair jumping in the air. He walked over to the window and watched, confirming the hair was his younger self's. Excuse me for a moment. He said, jumping out the window and heading over toward Ichigo. We have to warn them about Roka's powers. She doesn't have to have any permission to unleash the Zanpakutos from people. All she has to do is know the name of your Zanpakuto and she can release you from it. No asking, no nothing, she just does it. Koana explained to Ichigo. She believes that she is doing everyone a favor and so unbinds it without consent so to speak. If she undoes it, can it be put back again? I don't think she thought that far ahead. Koana looked up. Is that you? Ichigo looked over and saw his older self coming toward them. Yeah, that's the older me. Koana stopped and went behind Ichigo, hiding herself. What dash? He'll kill me. Ichigo made a face as he went to the ground, Captain Kurosaki following him. Ichigo, where have you been? I was going to go see Nanao but Orihime said I should look for Byakuya. Then why isn't Byakuya with you? That's because I was sidetracked by. Ichigo looked around. Hey, where'd she go? Who? Koana. Captain Kurosaki lifted an eyebrow at him. Koana? You mean Koana? Kuchiki? Yeah. She's dead, Ichigo. No, she's not. She was locked up and has been battling her hollow since then. Koana. Koana, come out. Captain Kurosaki grabbed Ichigo by the shoulders. Did that liquor screw up the story I told you? She was nowhere to be found after the incident, okay? She's gone. No, I'm not, Ani. Captain Kurosaki looked over and saw Koana walking toward him. He went to go to her but stopped. How do I know you're real? What do you mean? Ichigo asked. Aizen was released from his prison and is now a Kakurahita. He has no Zanpakuto. But I never saw his Zanpakuto, so that means that I would have immediately seen right through her. That may have been true before, but now that he doesn't have the Zanpakuto anymore, there really isn't a release to show. Captain Kurosaki said, glaring at Koana. How much have you told her? Ani, it's me. I promise. Quiz me if you like. Something only I would know. Captain Kurosaki stared at her for a moment as she looked at him in awe. The last time she had seen him was when he looked more like Ichigo and less like what he was now. How did you stop your father when he was being controlled by Murasanta? I stabbed you both, through you first and then through my father. I had been blasted with a Zero, but I found the strength to save you both. Captain Kurosaki was still leery, but Ichigo pointed at her. If this were an illusion of Aizen, I would have seen through her easily. From what she has described to me, the Kakurahita still have to have an activation word, just like we do. Wouldn't that initial activation be what I would originally see as a release? I guess so. We came to warn you though. She said, walking up to him. There are these two guys looking for you. Why? They want to make us a Kakurahita. Mostly you, but I'm you, so. Why me? They have Aizen and he almost had the Soul Society in Karakura town. They needed him, but now they need you. You have more power than him. Which reminds me, didn't Urahara seal him up? He shouldn't have powers at all. Ichigo said. Koana nodded. That may be true, but there is a Kakurahita that can turn on and turn off Zanpakutos. You mean like when the Quincy's were stealing the Bankais? Captain Kurosaki said. No, he turns them off and turns them on. As in, if you released either Shirkai or Bankai, he can just command them to turn off and they can't be released no matter how hard you try to get them to. Then, when you least expect it, he will turn them on again. It may sound stupid, but that's why Aizen has his power back now. I don't know exactly how he got Aizen's turn back on, but with him down, there's only one other person left to unleash. And that would be you, Kurosaki Ichigo. The three turned as a guy with a black mohawk looked at them and grinned. He was pretty stout and only had a pair of silver harem pants and matching shoes on. Seeing both Ichigos, he laughed, his big belly jiggling. Roka will be so happy to know that somehow there are two of you. Both Ichigos turned at the same time, putting their hands on their respective Zanpakutos. The man laughed again at the irony and crossed his hands over his chest. This is just too surreal. The odds of finding the both of you next to each other was a miracle in itself. Well, just so I don't have to deal with either of you, I'll just turn off the Zanpakutos. How can you do that when you don't even know its name? Ichigo said with a frown. The man turned his head and then put his hands on his hips. Just like this, indulge Sakti Bahayam Banda Zangetsu. He said, pointing a finger at each of them. Nothing happened and Ichigo made a face. That's all you're going to throw at us? Getsuga Tensho. Captain Kurosaki yelled, holding Zangetsu in his hands. Nothing came out and the man began to laugh. The look of horror on your face is probably the funniest thing that I've seen in a while, Kurosaki Ichigo. Koana glared at him from behind the two of them and the man caught notice of her. Oh. What's wrong, little girl? You don't like what I've done? Are you going to attack me? No. Are you playing with Soul Reapers again, Bus Yuta? Someone said, walking out. He was a very sleek man, tall and had no hair. He had a pointed nose and long eyelashes. Ichigo thought he was a pretty good rival to Yumachika. The big man, Bus Yuta, turned to him and scoffed. You're late, Tiku. I'm sorry. No, you're not. Go, Ichigo. Captain Kurosaki said. What? Go, I'll hold them off. No, you go. If they get a hold of you, you can bring down the whole Soul Society, he hissed. What? It's true, Ani. Koana said. They're after you. You have to go now. Go. I can hold them off. Ichigo grabbed his older self and pulled him down to his level, glaring him in the eye. Listen, get the hell away from here and go warn everyone that these guys are here. Now, Captain. Oh no you don't, the skinny one, Tiku, said, turning back to them from fighting with Bus Yuta. Undo Satana dash. Go. Ichigo and Koana yelled at the same time. Captain Kurosaki used Sonido and left just before Tiku could use his Rihai on all three of them. Ninda. Koana and Ichigo immediately collapsed to the ground and Tiku snapped his fingers angrily. Aw man. I missed him. That's what you get for procrastinating. Bus Yuta grumbled. Shut up and let's get these two to Roka. Even though we got the little one, I'm sure this Kurosaki Ichigo will be enough for her. Captain Kurosaki ended up in the middle of the Soul Society and he looked around for a moment, wondering where he should head first. There was no one to tell because he was the only one that really mattered, and telling Nanao that her daughter was alive was a preposterous idea. Kurosaki-kun. Captain Kurosaki turned, seeing Orihime looking at him in worry. What's wrong? Where is the head captain? He's with Nanao-chan in the infirmary. I was explaining the situation to Matsumoto. Where did you go all of a sudden? I saw Ichigo outside of the window and went to see what had taken him so long in trying to find Byakuya when I ran into some people. They deactivated my Zanpakuto and now they are after me. I need to go tell the head captain about them. Kurosaki looked and found one of his own blades in his stomach. He looked at Orihime, whose eyes were glassy, as if she were not in her right mind. Oh no, look what's happened. A female voice said, coming around the corner. She had white hair that was spiked up and looked like a mix between Toshiro and Soifon's hairstyles. Her half-shirt and harem pants were white and her pointy shoes were black. She was very pretty and buxom as well as she walked over to Kurosaki. My, you are a hunk of a man, let me tell you. I didn't think we'd ever bring you down. Oh well. She stood by Orihime and then pushed Kurosaki as his body slid from his blade. My name is Banzai, by the way. She pushed Kurosaki again and he fell onto the ground. He collapsed immediately and Banzai put her foot over the wound he just received, stepping on it and causing him to yell out. Now that you're wounded, you'll be slower to catch. Won't Roka be so happy to find you in a state of needing our help? Kurosaki-kun. Orihime said in shock. Banzai looked over and made a face. Ah, time ran out. Well, I've done my duty. What can you do, Kurosaki Ichigo? You'll need our help one way or the other. She skipped away as Orihime looked at the sword in her hands and at Kurosaki on the ground. She screamed bloody murder as she went to her knees beside him. Kurosaki-kun. Kurosaki. No. Not again. Please don't die. Ichigo. Byakuya opened his eyes but he was in his inner world. He looked around and saw Senbenzakura standing there, stock still and not moving whatsoever. Byakuya got up as he heard someone conversing and looked over, seeing another version of himself and a lady with purple and pink hair talking next to a sakura tree. Byakuya got up and was heading over to Senbenzakura. I wouldn't do that if I were you. The woman said. Byakuya turned to her and frowned, not happy to see her. Sasuke. You remembered me, she said, looking thrilled. I'm so excited. How can I forget what you made me do? Ah, are you still on about that? Gee, and your hollow and I were getting along famously. Get a hold of yourself, Byakuya, and defeat this beach, his hollow growled. Murasanta moved and Byakuya could now see that he was being held to the tree by a stake through his torso. Even though Byakuya didn't like that side of him, he didn't appreciate Murasanta torturing him. Why is he trapped there? Safekeeping. They're not ready for him yet, but they wanted you subdued. You're in a limbo-esque state. That's why that hunk of metal isn't doing anything, yet. Byakuya looked back at Senbonzakura when Murasanta turned her head a little. Oh. Ooh, it looks like it's time. She ripped the stake from Byakuya's hollow and held the stake up like it was a sword. Let's get down to business. Ichigo and Koana were brought to Rukia and Tiku pointed at the two. Redo Satana Jagera. They both woke up and when Ichigo saw where he was he got up immediately. Aizen smirked from his spot next to Rukia on in her chair. That look of surprise never ceases to make me smile. He said. Aizen, that's enough. Aizen slid his gaze to Rukia but didn't say anything more. Rukia smiled at Ichigo. Do excuse my subordinates. They get a little rowdy when we are trying to convert new members. Ichigo just glared at her. This isn't the right one. She said, looking at Tiku and Busyuta. Yes, well, he was there and then he disappeared. Tiku said, rubbing his bald head. I was doing my Rihai and then he disappeared in the middle of it and these two were left. Rukia made a face as she got up and went up to Ichigo. She touched his face, moving it back and forth. Your power is not even close to the Kurosaki Ichigo I met some time ago or that I feel is here in the Soul Society. You're nothing but a silly shell. Ichigo clenched his fist. I am not a shell, or a jigai, or anything else. I am Kurosaki Ichigo, just like that guy you all seem to like so much. I grow up to be him. I am him. Rukia smiled at him like she was smiling a child declaring his dreams of being a unicorn herder. It was disrespectful and degrading. If that were so, there would have been a paradox already. You are not him and you never will be. The door opened to their lair and Banzai walked in. Banzai, where have you been? Oh, causing a ruckus. She said with a grin. What type? Ichigo could feel it in his bones that someone was wrong with his other self. It wasn't that he felt it within him but it was just like when he kept tabs on his friend's erasure and. You killed him? Ichigo asked, looking at her. Rukia turned swiftly to her as Banzai waved her hand dismissively. No. I caused a ruckus. If Murasanta goes over there now, she'll be able to claim his hollow. Ooh. Ooh, can I go? She said, raising her hand. Rukia smiled. Well done, Banzai. At least someone knows how to get the captain. She turned to Ichigo. As for you, I have no use for you. So, why don't you get reacquainted with an old friend of yours? Busyuta grabbed Ichigo and held him there, dragging him to a hole that was in the middle of the room. There was a snarling noise as someone else brought in a hollow and Murasanta grinned at Ichigo. Koana gasped, finally waking up and standing. Oto-san. Byakuya. Have fun. Busyuta threw Ichigo into the hole as Murasanta seemed to lift her hold and the Byakuya ran straight for the hole. They closed the door above them and Murasanta pranced over to the door. I'll be right back with one hunk of a Soul Reaper on our side. Rukia looked at Aizen as he lifted an eyebrow at her. She walked over to him and pulled him to her level, giving him a nice kiss. He pulled away, not amused. What was that for? Because my plan is going underway and it's thanks to you. I do enjoy a man with prowess and an evil streak. I prefer my women, he said, pulling away from her, in their place. Or helpless, right? Aizen gave a slow smirk but didn't answer. He was going to take over the Soul Society once more, and once Rukia thought she was on top, he would use his Zanpakuto against her and rule the worlds as he believed he should. But for how, he could play innocent. After all, it was his forte. Captain Kuratsuchi, are you sure this was a good idea? The head captain told us to put her in the same place that Aizen was kept, not to the labs. Shut up, Nimue, I didn't ask for your opinions on my ability to follow an order. Besides, she's knocked out, and how are we supposed to defeat the Kakurahita if we don't study them? Nimue said nothing as Osaka struggled against the table where she was bound and gagged. What do you plan to do with her then? The issue is that they don't have to use their Zanpakutos anymore to use the powers they possess. So the obvious solution is to figure out how to change that. Oh, bravo! That's a great plan. Someone said, clapping. Mayuri looked behind him and saw Urahara walking in. Mayuri gripped the controller in his hand. Why are you here? Head captain's orders that Squad 12 always have someone to watch the Research and Development Center. Remember what happened to Akon? Who? Mayuri said with a disinterested face. Urahara rolled his eyes. No matter. I would like to help you in your endeavors with this Kakurahita. We could collaborate. I don't want to do anything with the likes of you. Mayuri screamed. Please forgive my intrusion of your conversation, sir, but dash. Not now, Nimue. But dash. I said not now. Nimue sighed as she looked at the empty table where Osaka had been and decided to just go ahead and wait for her captain to notice she was gone. She would have gone after her, but the last time she took matters into her own hands, she was practically destroyed. That, and Mayuri was more angry with her than ever. So, she stood patiently. Osaka laughed as she looked behind her. Man, that crazy guy was so worked up about the other one that no one realized I can still mumble my Rihai and it will still work. Bakas. Oh, who's the Bakas? I want to know. Osaka gasped and stopped as the purple-haired girl stopped as well. The green and white striped hat didn't match the girl at all, but for some reason it completed her as she looked up from under the brim of it and gave a knowing smile. Looks like you're heading somewhere important, mind if I come along? Don't you know who I am? I'm a Kakurahita. I can defeat you and I don't even need a Zanpakuto. Ooh, I'm impressed. Tetsuri said, clapping with just her fingers at the girl. Truly, the feat is quite remarkable. Osaka turned her head at the girl and then put her hands on her hips. You're mocking me. Okay, fine, you caught me. But I did pretty good, nye, she said, sticking her tongue out and pulling her eye down. Osaka lifted an eyebrow at her. You're really weird. Again, don't take me lightly. I can defeat you without much effort. You keep saying that and yet you haven't done anything. I have a feeling you don't even like doing this. What's your name? Like I'd tell you. Well, can you tell me if you used to be a Soul Reaper and then got turned into a Kakurahita? Or were you born with the ideas of the Kakurahita and then when you figured out you may have the powers, you asked to become one? Because it seems that you can't be born a Kakurahita, right? You're pretty smart. No, you can't be born a Kakurahita, Lady Rukia has to make you one. My parents were Kakurahitas and were killed when the Siriidii deemed the practice too dangerous. I was raised with them and when my powers manifested, I asked to become one. I see. Then I have a proposition for you. Like what? What could a Soul Reaper give me? Well see, that's the thing, I'm not a Soul Reaper. Tetsuri said, picking her nose with her pinky finger. What the, why are you picking your nose? Stop that, you're a lady. True, but I'm not a Soul Reaper, so, going to combat with me will be a piece of cake, right? She looked at her with startlingly dangerous brown eyes. Or have you relied too much on your Rihai? Osaka made a face and then crossed her arms. Why aren't you trying to capture me or kill me? Like I said, I'm not a Soul Reaper, I'm just the daughter of a lowly candy shop owner. Tetsuri untied her coat and let it flow behind her. Let's play a little game. If I win, you let us do some research on you as well as answer any questions we have. And if I win, I will give you the book that lists all of names of the Zanpakutos of the Siriidii and who owns them. Osaka narrowed her eyes at the girl. She didn't look like much, what with that ugly green and white hat that didn't match her plum-colored hair, the unflattering dark coat, and the audacity and casualness of the Geta shoes she was wearing. Odd, with those shoes I would think I would have been able to hear her the first time. So, what'll it be, girl? Fine, what is your game? It's quite simple, whoever gets 3 points wins. And, how do you get 3 points? Suddenly Tetsuri wasn't there and Osaka's lavender hair that had been in a bun was now waving about her face. Osaka gasped as Tetsuri appeared again, holding the ribbon. Simple again, I pull the ribbon from your hair and you knock the hat off of my head. Deal. No special Kakurahita powers or Zanpakuto powers, just hand-to-hand combat. Simple enough, right? Osaka learned some of the combat skills that the other former Soul Reapers had done, so she was pretty good with her hand-to-hand combat. Sure, sounds simple enough. Tetsuri gave another odd grin and suddenly began to run. Catch me if you can, Kakurahita. I'm counting on you. Osaka seemed to wake up from thinking and ran after Tetsuri. I will win. Captain Kurosaki opened his eyes and tried to sit up but couldn't. He coughed, blood showing up in his hand. Please don't move, Captain. He heard next to him. He turned and saw Orihime mixing something in a bowl, not looking at him. Orihime. Try not to move around. What are you doing? Trying to help you. I was controlled and that woman made me stab you with your own sword. You're in a pretty critical condition. I tried to heal you but apparently. Her fists clenched. In all the time that I have had these powers, it never occurred to me that I would be unable to do anything with them. Ichigo, I can't heal you because you were stabbed by your own sword. Captain Kurosaki's eyes widened just a little but he smirked and grabbed one of her hands. It's not something that comes up often, so you would have never known. Most injuries are done from someone else's sword, not the person themselves. It makes sense that you cannot heal a self-inflicted, so to speak, wound. I'm sorry, Ichigo, she cried, tears falling from her eyes. I'm so sorry. Don't be. Just do what you can and help me get up. There's a war coming and I have to be there for it. But in this condition they'll be sure to catch you. That's what they want. Maybe that's what we should give them. Ichigo, they have someone who can control people and if the same person who controlled Captain Kuchiki is also a Kakurahita then they can definitely control you. Then they're in for a big surprise. Orihime looked at him as he looked out the window. Byakuya thinks he knows his hollow, but it's easily corruptible. It will be a little harder to make me do exactly what they want. Me and my hollow have a little understanding and although we aren't friends, we're not enemies anymore. We work together, alongside Zangetsu. It's different. Besides, he turned back to look at Orihime. They've captured me. I think it's reasonable that I save myself, right? Orihime smiled. Right. Ichigo was in a smaller version of the underground training yards that Urahara and Hirako under their homes and was running from Byakuya's hollow form for dear life. Now he knew what Ishida had felt like when he had turned into a full hollow and arbitrarily just threw his sword into him without a second thought. Byakuya wouldn't care if he knew him or not at this moment in time, he just wanted to eat him. Byakuya suddenly sent a Siro towards him and Ichigo barely missed it as he jumped over a boulder and hid behind it. I don't think my hollow form would be able to handle this type of pressure. I can always try though. He closed his eyes for a second and shook his head. Something is wrong with the other me. I can feel it in the pit of my stomach. I have to get out of here and make sure I'm okay. Byakuya let out a scream and Ichigo closed his eyes, pulling his hand over his face to put the hollow mask on. Captain Kurosaki, with Orihime's help, was starting to make his way towards where he could sense his younger version's Ryatsu. He noticed the change and he also noticed Byakuya's change in Ryatsu. Sheet, Byakuya's hollow has been released and I'm trying to fight him. They feel close together. Don't rush yourself, Kurosaki-san. Orihime said, putting her hand on his back. I'm fine, Orihime. I've dealt with wounds worse than this. I think we should just get you to Squad 4 and have them take a look at you. I'm sure Captain Zaraki will be able to help you. Knowing him, he'll just punch me in my already open wound. He may have calmed down a lot, but he's still a Kenpachi. Yachiru would do the same thing. He coughed, holding his stomach as much as he could as he vomited blood. Sheet. See. Again, I can handle it. He stood up straight and wiped the blood from his mouth. I'm not going to lose to these idiots. Ah, it's not very nice to call us something so lame. Captain Kurosaki turned, his hand on the hilt of his Zanpakuto. Murasanta smiled at him and then made a face. You're bleeding. That's what usually happens when you get stabbed. I try not to do it often. How am I supposed to control your hollow if when I'm done with you will probably die? Then again, your hollow is pretty temperamental when it comes to the body it inhabits. Go, Orihime. The captain said. I'll hold her off. Murasanta giggled. Oh my, with that dysfunctional thing. If I do recall, Busyuda should have deactivated it so you don't have anything. That doesn't mean they aren't still swords. Murasanta laughed, throwing her hair back over her shoulder. You are just adorable. Every time I see you, I just want to pinch your little cheeks. I hate doing this to super cute people. Retrieve Anterica Nyantrana. Captain Kurosaki dropped his blades and began to yell, holding his head as the hollow began to take over. Hi, I brought the Kakurahita that escaped back. Tachuri yelled, dragging Osaka behind her. Mayuri looked over and his eyes widened as he looked over at Nimue. Nimue. Didn't I tell you to watch the prisoner? I did, but when I tried to tell you she escaped you told me to be quiet. Urahara smiled and went over to Osaka, who was pouting in her bound state. Oh my, it looks like you've gotten yourself into a predicament there. Will you cooperate with us now? Osaka was about to say something crude when she looked behind Urahara's shoulder and saw Tachuri glaring at her, an aura that rivaled Captain Anohana's put fear into the young girl, and she nodded. Grand. Urahara said, turning back to Mayuri, who was grinding his teeth in a dangerously tight way. So, it looks like we will get to work together after all. Won't that be fun? He said nothing as Tachuri pulled on Osaka's rope. I got her to tell us what can defeat them, Dad. She said with a grin. Well, aren't you just like your mother, he said with a pat on her head. Osaka frowned. Seems more like her father, that crazy Bleach. I thank you all who were able for coming. It seems that the Kakurahita have become a bigger problem than to be expected. They have released Aizen from his prison and it seems like they have done something to Captain Kuchiki, Captain Kurosaki, as well as Ichigo Kurosaki. We have Captain Kuratsuchi and Urahara working with the Kakurahita that was captured by them in order to figure out how we can combat these foes. Sorry to interrupt. Someone said as the door opened up. But I thought I heard my name. Everyone looked over as Aizen walked in. The head captain made a face at him. You have some nerve walking in on a captain's meeting, Aizen Sosuke. I just couldn't pass up an opportunity to come say hello. Lots of new faces, and some old ones, that I didn't expect. He said, glaring straight at Jin. Jin smirked. Ohio, Aizen-sama. The head captain got up. What is it you wish to do here, Aizen? Unfortunately, I'm just a distraction. Shatter, Kyoka Suijetsu. Everyone but Jin seemed to be entrapped in whatever Aizen had planned. Jin smiled as Aizen narrowed his eyes at him. Nay, it seems I'm immune. That's impossible. Aizen said, narrowing his eyes at Jin. You're the only one who knows the secret, but the blade is no longer here. Jin grinned more. Oh dear, it seems I've surprised you. That's not something that happens too often, is it, Aizen-sama? Jin moved out of the way of a couple of captains who were fighting something Jin thought most likely a replica of Aizen in whatever hypnotic trance they were in, and stared at Aizen. It looks like we'll have to fight on our own terms. But where's your Zanpakuto? It looks like you don't have something to defend yourself with. Aizen glared at him. You underestimate me. Didn't that cause your death before? Nope. I never underestimated you, Aizen-sama. Ichigo warned me about you long before I even decided to go up against you. I knew I would probably die in the process, but I knew what my resolve was. Although I failed in my purpose, knowing I had protected Ranjaku was enough. I was given a second chance, and although I've been a very, very good boy, I always keep my resolve. And what is that? Aizen said with a mocking smirk. Jin smirked back. I am a snake. Always have been and always will be. Aizen chuckled. Well then, I guess I will have to cut your head off, since that's the proper way to kill a snake.